My daughter called my marriage convenient at 4:17 on a Thursday afternoon. Joanne was 12 feet away, writing Claire's guests' names on place cards. I had my phone on speaker because Claire had talked me into helping glue tiny strips of blue paper onto tiny strips of cream paper, an activity apparently necessary for two adults to become legally and spiritually united. My fingertips were shiny with adhesive. Joanne sat at the dining room table with her reading glasses low on her nose, correcting my work whenever a blue strip leaned too far left. "Dad," Claire said through the phone, "I'm not trying to hurt anybody. The ceremony is just for the people who shaped us." I looked toward Joanne. Her pen had stopped above Evan's aunt's name. "You asked Joanne to make those table runners," I said. "That's the reception. I'm talking about the ceremony. Rick's coming to the ceremony. Mom needs him. And Joanne is my wife." Claire gave a short, tired laugh. "You're acting like Joanne is the love of your life. Your marriage is convenient. She likes taking care of people. You like being taken care of. And everybody knows it." The phone sat between my gluey hands. Joanne lowered her pen. Claire kept talking. She must know what the arrangement is. I reached for the phone too late, not to hang up, not to stop Claire, just to take her off speaker, as if making the cruelty quieter could make it unhappen. Joanne looked at me, and in the second before she spoke, I understood that whatever answer I gave next would be one she remembered for the rest of our marriage. I said, "Claire, that's enough." It was not the worst thing I could have said. It was nowhere close to the right one. Claire went silent. Then she exhaled in the particular way she had learned from her mother, a breath capable of communicating exhaustion, disappointment, and superior judgment without requiring a single noun. "I knew this would become a whole thing," she said. Joanne capped the navy pen. "A whole thing," I repeated. "Can we just discuss it later? I'm already dealing with the florist changing the delivery window, and Evan's cousin still hasn't answered, and Mom thinks the ceremony music is depressing." "What music? That's not the point." "No, I suppose it isn't." I looked at Joanne again. She had begun gathering the finished place cards into neat stacks. She did not look angry. Anger would have been easier. Anger had doors you could close, fires you could wait out. Joanne looked precise. "Claire," I said, "did you ever intend to invite Joanne to the ceremony?" "I haven't finalized anything." "You finalized Rick." "Because Mom asked me months ago." "I shouldn't have to ask." "Dad, please don't do this right now." Joanne stood and carried the first stack toward the white bakery box she had repurposed to keep the cards clean. There were nearly 100 of them, each hand-lettered because Claire had decided printed names felt impersonal. Joanne had practiced the lowercase f in Jennifer for half an hour because the ink kept pooling where the loop crossed. I watched her place those cards in the box. "Joanne heard you," I said. Claire's silence changed. It was no longer impatient. It became alert. "All of it?" she asked. Joanne's mouth moved, not quite a smile. "Yes," I said. "Why didn't you tell me she was there?" That question did what the insult had not. It made something hot move up the back of my neck. "You were on speaker in our house." "I didn't know that." "I told you when I answered." "Well, I obviously forgot." Joanne came back for the unfinished cards. "Joanne," Claire called, raising her voice as if distance were the issue. "I'm sorry you heard that out of context." Joanne paused with one hand on the table. I knew her well enough to recognize the danger in the way she tilted her head. Joanne did not have a temper people warned you about. She had a patience people mistook for permission. "What context would improve it?" she asked. Claire stumbled. "I just meant you and Dad have a different kind of marriage." "Different from whose?" "From," Claire stopped. "I'm not insulting you." Joanne glanced at me, perhaps to see whether I planned to participate in this new version of events. I wiped my fingers on a paper towel. The glue had dried into a thin skin along my thumb. "You just said my wife takes care of me because that's the arrangement." "That is not exactly what I said. It's close enough that I don't think we need a transcript." Claire made the breath again. "This is why I didn't want to bring it up." Joanne picked up the box. "Claire," she said, "I have your place cards, the final linen measurements, the centerpiece list, and the phone number for the woman making the cake. Do you want your father to bring them by tonight, or would tomorrow be better?" The question was so ordinary that Claire missed its meaning. "Tomorrow is fine, but you don't have to send everything. I still need the cards. They're in the box. I mean, finished." Joanne looked down at the remaining blank cards. "They are as finished as they're going to be here." "Oh." That one word held the first small crack in Claire's certainty. Joanne, I wasn't saying I don't appreciate everything you've done. I know. I do appreciate it. I know that too. Then why are you making this about the wedding? Joanne's fingers tightened around the box, but her voice remained level. I didn't. She carried it down the hall toward the small room we called the office. Although it contained one desk, 3 lamps that had nowhere else to go, and enough wrapping paper to survive a national shortage. Dad, Claire said quietly. I picked at the glue on my thumb. What? Can you talk to her? I almost laughed, not because anything was funny, because the request was so familiar that my body recognized it before my mind did. Talk to Joanne. Translate Claire. Soften the sharp corners. Explain that stress had made somebody say a thing they did not mean, though they had said it clearly and defended it twice. I think she understood you, I said. That isn't fair. No, it isn't. I mean to me. Joanne returned carrying a gray binder against her chest. Claire's wedding binder. Joanne had organized it with colored tabs because Claire kept losing notes inside a canvas tote bag filled with receipts, lipstick, and loose almonds. Joanne set the binder beside the glue sticks. Daniel, she said, tell her the cake deposit is due Monday. The baker only takes a check. Claire heard her. I know when the deposit is due. You called yesterday to ask me. I was confirming. Joanne gave a small nod. Then you're confirmed. She went back down the hall. Claire lowered her voice again. She's being dramatic. My hand closed around the paper towel. The easy response waited at the front of my mouth. She's hurt. Give her time. We'll straighten this out. I had used some version of those words for 13 years. Every Christmas when Claire gave Joanne a generic candle and handed me an engraved watch. Every dinner when she asked Joanne to make her favorite potatoes, and then reminisced about when it was just the 3 of us. Every photograph where Joanne was asked to take the picture rather than stand in it. None of those moments had seemed large enough to justify a fight. Together, they had filled a bakery box. I'm going to hang up now, I said. Dad, don't. We need to figure out the seating cards. No, you need to figure out the seating cards. You were helping too. My contribution was gluing paper crooked. You can't just drop this on me 6 weeks before the wedding. I looked at the place where Joanne had been sitting. Her reading glasses remained beside the navy pen. I didn't drop it on you, I said. I think you dropped it on yourself. I ended the call before Claire could answer. For a few seconds, the house made its usual noises. The air conditioner kicked on. A truck changed gears on the main road. Somewhere outside, our neighbor's wind chime tapped out 3 notes without committing to a song. I peeled the glue from my thumb in one satisfying piece. Joanne came back with 2 fabric bags and set them beside the box. One held folded table runners, smoky blue with cream stitching. She had made 6. Claire needed 12. You're really stopping? I asked. Joanne looked at me. It was a foolish question, and we both knew it. I mean, yes, of course you are. I stood. I'll take it all to her tomorrow. Thank you. I can finish the gluing. Daniel, I know it's not the point. I'm just saying those cards have people's names on them already. Then Claire has a head start. She removed her reading glasses, folded them, and slid them into the front pocket of her blouse. Joanne was 61 and had the kind of face that seemed open until she decided to close it. Fine lines at the corners of her eyes usually made her look amused. At that moment, they looked carved. She's under a lot of pressure, I said. The sentence escaped before I could stop it. Joanne looked toward the ceiling. I'm not excusing what she said. Aren't you? No, I'm explaining why she might say something cruel she doesn't mean. What part didn't she mean? Joanne, she knew I wasn't invited before today. She knew I was doing all this work. She knew her mother's boyfriend was invited. Which part happened because the florist changed a delivery window? I moved a glue stick out of the way, as though we needed a clear table for the conversation. She's never gotten over the divorce. Claire was 19 when you and Sharon divorced. She's 37 now. Pain doesn't follow a calendar. No, but apparently our marriage does. 13 years, and I'm still waiting for the part where I stop being the woman you married after her mother. You are not just that. To you, to anyone. Joanne rested both hands on the back of her chair. Your daughter just gave you a list of what I am to this family, and every item was a service. That's Claire's problem. Is it? The question landed softly. I opened my mouth, but she continued. You tell people we work well together. You tell them I make your life easy. You tell them this house finally runs the way a house should. Every anniversary, you praise our system like we're a reliable municipal department. Despite everything, I felt the corner of my mouth twitch. Joanne saw it. "Don't laugh," she said, though she was fighting the same impulse. "I'm not. You are a little. Reliable municipal department? It's how you talk about us. That's not fair." "No, it's funny. That's why it's so irritating." The brief humor vanished almost as quickly as it had come. I walked around the table. "You know I love you." "I do." Her answer came without hesitation, which somehow made it worse. "Then, what are we talking about?" "We're talking about whether you love me in a way that ever costs you anything." I stopped. Joanne picked up the bakery box, and I reached for it automatically. "I've got it," she said. "I know. I was helping. I know that too." She carried the box to the front hall and placed it beside the door. The binder went on top, then the fabric bags. A tidy stack of returned usefulness. I followed her. I told Claire she was wrong. You told her that was enough. It was a start. No, Daniel. It was an ending. That's what you always say when someone has gone as far as you're willing to confront them. She walked toward the stairs. "Where are you going?" "To pack a bag." The room seemed to shift by half an inch. "Joanne, don't do that." She turned on the first step. If she's been saying this with her behavior for 13 years, why is today the first day you're surprised? I had no answer. Joanne waited long enough to make sure of it, then went upstairs. I listened to the closet doors open and close above me. There are sounds in a marriage you recognize without seeing them. The scrape of a suitcase coming down from the top shelf. The shallow rattle of wooden hangers pushed aside. A dresser drawer closing with a hip because both hands are full. I stood at the foot of the stairs until it became obvious I was doing nothing except waiting for Joanne to come back down and make this easier for me. So I went up. Our suitcase was open on the bed, not the large green one we used for trips. Joanne had chosen the soft black bag she carried when she visited her sister, Paula. 3 or 4 days, if she packed the way she normally did. She laid a sweater inside and smoothed it flat. "Are you going to Paula's?" "Yes. Does she know?" I texted her. That stung in a ridiculous way. Paula knew something about my marriage that I had not known 20 minutes ago. Joanne crossed to the bathroom, returned with her toothbrush and face cream, and tucked them into an outside pocket. Her reading glasses were now on the dresser beside the silver tray where she kept her earrings. "You don't have to leave," I said. "I'm aware. I'm not asking you to pretend nothing happened. What are you asking?" "For us to talk." "We did." "No. You told me how you felt, and then you decided to leave." Joanne zipped the pocket. "That is often how talking works. You know what I mean." "I do. You mean you haven't said the thing that will fix it yet, so the conversation can't possibly be over. I don't think one thing fixes this. That's progress." I leaned against the dresser, immediately disliked how casual it made me look, and stood straight again. I should have shut Claire down sooner. Yes. I shouldn't have left any room for her to speak about you like that. No. I should have asked about the invitation weeks ago. Joanne lifted a pair of shoes from the floor. "Did you know I wasn't invited?" I knew the ceremony was small. That wasn't my question. I looked at the shoes in her hands. Brown flats, clean, except for a dark mark at one heel. She told me they were still deciding. When? Maybe 2 months ago. "And what did you say?" I said I understood. Joanne set the shoes inside the bag more carefully than they required. I heard the answer again after it was too late. I understood. Not, "Who exactly are you deciding between?" Not, "Why is your father's wife helping plan a ceremony she may not attend?" Just the response Claire had counted on. "I assumed you were included," I said. "You assumed in the most convenient possible direction." "Come on, Joanne, there it is." "What?" "That little edge in your voice. I have finally become the person making this uncomfortable." I took a breath, then another, because the first had been mostly irritation. "That isn't what I meant. I know. You don't mean most of it." She went to the closet and took down a blue blouse. It was the one I liked, which felt either hopeful or completely unrelated to me. "Paula hates me," I said. "Paula doesn't hate you. She owns a coffee mug that says, 'My sister deserves better.' I bought her that after she divorced Frank. She always turns it toward me. That's because Paula enjoys theater." Joanne folded the blouse. I smiled before I could help it, and this time, she almost did too. That was the trap of a long, decent marriage. Even during the worst conversations, the machinery of affection kept operating. You knew where the other person's jokes were stored. You could reach them in the dark. "Please don't go," I said. Joanne stopped folding. "I'm not leaving you. You're packing a bag. I'm leaving this house for a few days because, if I stay, you'll spend tonight explaining Claire to me. By morning, I'll be reassuring you. By the weekend, I'll be finishing those table runners because none of this is the fabric's fault. I wouldn't ask you to do that. You wouldn't have to." That was true enough that I sat on the edge of the bed. Joanne had always been the first one to end a cold silence. Even when she had not started it, she returned shopping carts other people abandoned across parking spaces. Once, at a restaurant, she helped our rude waiter clean up a tray he dropped after he ignored us for 40 minutes. I loved that about her. Apparently, so did everyone who benefited from it. "I don't know what you want me to do," I admitted. "For the next hour? Let me pack without making me comfort you." The precision of it left no room for confusion. "All right." I stood. At the doorway, I turned back. "When are you coming home?" "When I know I'm coming home because I want our marriage, not because you need me to make the house feel normal." Then she reached for her reading glasses, and I went downstairs. The box and binder waited by the front door like luggage for someone who had been asked to leave. I moved them 6 inches to make room for Joanne's bag. Then I worried she would think I was helping her go, so I moved them back. Claire called twice. I let the phone ring. Her third attempt was a text. "I'm sorry," she heard me. "Can you please call?" A minute later, another arrived. "I don't want this to become something bigger than it is." I read that one several times. From upstairs came the muted roll of suitcase wheels crossing carpet. Joanne descended wearing a light jacket and carrying her bag. She had changed her earrings, small silver loops instead of the blue stones she'd worn all day. "I can drive you," I said. "I have a car. I know you have a car. Then we're both current on the transportation situation." She set her bag down and checked the side table for her keys. I found them under a grocery flyer and held them out. She took them but did not step away. "I love you," I said. "I love you too." The words were still true. That was the frightening part. If Paula turns the mug toward me when I call, I'm hanging up. I'll warn her. I wanted to kiss Joanne. I could not determine whether asking would be considerate or cowardly. So I stood there holding nothing while she picked up her bag. At the door, she glanced down at the bakery box. "Don't let Claire talk you into finishing the cards." "I won't. She'll say the lettering doesn't have to match." "I know. She'll remind you that you have good handwriting. My handwriting looks like a seismograph. She's under pressure. She may become generous." I laughed once and Joanne opened the door. "Drive safely." She nodded. Then she was gone. I watched her taillights disappear at the end of the street. When I shut the door, the house did not feel empty. It felt paused, which was worse. Empty was a condition. Paused was a threat. I ate crackers over the sink because the refrigerator was full of food Joanne had planned into meals, and using any of it felt like evidence for the prosecution. At 8, Claire called again. This time, I answered. "Is she there?" she asked. "No." "Where did she go?" "To Paula's." "Oh my God." I waited. I didn't tell her to leave. "No, did you?" "Of course not. So now what?" I looked at the dark dining room. Joanne's navy pen still lay on the table beside 27 unfinished place cards. Now she stays at Paula's until she wants to come home. That could be tomorrow. It could. Or not. Claire's voice softened. "Dad, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it where she could hear. You keep apologizing for the acoustics. You know what I mean? I'm starting to think I do." She went quiet, then said, "I wasn't trying to say you don't love her. You said I was acting like she was the love of my life, because you were turning one invitation decision into a referendum on your marriage." One invitation decision? The ceremony is 22 people, 23 if you count Rick. Why are you so focused on Rick? Because you say the ceremony is for people who shaped you. Rick met your mother 4 years ago. He supports her. Joanne has supported you for 13. Not in the same way. No, Joanne does it with table runners. Claire made a small sound of frustration. "What do you want, Dad? Do you want me to remove Rick? I want you to understand why you included him without thinking and excluded Joanne after apparently thinking about it for 2 months. That isn't fair. Mom and Joanne are different. I'm aware. I was married to both of them. You didn't have to say that. I'm done pretending obvious facts are insults. The words surprised both of us. Claire recovered first. Can we talk tomorrow in person? I'm bringing the wedding materials at 10. You don't have to bring all of them. Joanne wants them returned, but you can leave the fabric. She already cut it. Claire, I paid for the fabric. Then it should definitely be in your house. There was a muffled voice on her end. Evan, asking something I could not make out. Is that your dad? He said more clearly. Claire covered the phone, but not well enough. Yes. It's still the Joanne thing. The Joanne thing. I heard Evan say, "Put him on speaker." A second later, his voice sharpened through the phone. "Daniel, I'm here. I'm sorry about all this." It was the kind of statement people made when they wanted credit for arriving after the collision. Were you aware Joanne wasn't invited? I asked. A pause. Claire said the list wasn't final. That's what she told me too. It wasn't, Claire said. Did you think she should be there? I asked Evan. Another pause, longer this time. I thought she would be. Evan, I did. Claire's voice went cold. You said you didn't care. I said I didn't want to choose your ceremony guests, so now you're choosing. No, your father asked what I thought, and somehow everybody's decided I'm a monster. No one said monster, Evan replied. But I didn't know Joanne was doing all this while not being invited. She volunteered. The word hung there. I looked again at the unfinished cards. 10 o'clock, I said. Dad, wait. I'll see you tomorrow. I ended the call. At 9:30, Joanne texted that she had arrived safely. No heart, no good night. Just, here. Paula says the mug is in the dishwasher. I typed 3 different replies before sending. Tell her I appreciate the restraint. Joanne answered with a single period, then quickly sent, that was supposed to be a laughing face. I don't have my glasses on. I laughed alone in the kitchen. For a moment, relief rushed through me. We were still us. Joanne could still make a mistake with her phone, and I could still picture exactly the expression on her face when she discovered it. Then I noticed her glasses on the dining room table. She had taken the older pair from upstairs. I picked them up by one arm and folded them. Beneath them was a card Joanne had completed before the call. My own name, Daniel Mercer, written in navy ink. There was no place card for her. I left my place card where it was. By 6 the next morning, I had slept perhaps 40 minutes, all of them with one foot outside the covers, because Joanne usually complained that I stole too much of them. Her side of the bed remained smooth. Sometime around 3, I had reached across without waking fully and found cold sheet. I made coffee for 2. That was habit, not hope. I poured Joanne's cup back into the pot before it had finished brewing and ended up with grounds on the counter. At 8, Claire texted. Can you come at 9 instead? I replied. 10. She sent the thumbs up symbol, which looked less like agreement than a tiny hand trying to stop traffic. I showered, dressed, and loaded the bakery box into the back seat. The gray binder went on top. The fabric bags fit beside it. I found 2 receipts Joanne had clipped to the refrigerator, put them in the binder's front pocket, and then stood in the dining room staring at my place card. It was absurd to bring it. Joanne had made it for Claire's reception, and I was still invited to that. Nothing about a 3-inch piece of cream paper required a declaration. I carried it to the car anyway. Claire and Evan lived 15 minutes away in a narrow brick townhouse with a front step that tilted slightly toward the sidewalk. Every time I visited, I told Evan I could fix it. Every time he said he would get to it. This was our relationship. 2 men politely competing over a repair, neither of us performed. His car was in the driveway. Claire opened the door before I knocked. She wore black leggings, a gray sweatshirt, and no makeup. Her hair was twisted on top of her head in a way that looked accidental, but probably required equipment. She had my eyes and Sharon's ability to look formally offended before breakfast. You're early, she said. It's 9:56. I know. I just thought you'd sit in the car until 10. I considered it. She looked past me toward my car. Did you bring everything? Good morning to you too. Her face softened. Good morning, Dad. I wanted to hug her. The urge irritated me, which was not the same as making it go away. Evan appeared behind her holding a coffee mug. He was 40, lean, and permanently in need of a haircut. Claire said his hair was part of his charm. Sharon said it looked evasive. Hey, Daniel, he said. Want coffee? I've had enough to hear colors. That sounds like a no. It's a cautious maybe. He stepped outside to help me carry the materials. Claire reached for the binder, but I gave her a fabric bag instead. There was no reason for this. It simply felt like Joanne's binder deserved to be carried by someone who knew its weight. Inside, the townhouse had entered the late stages of wedding preparation. Small white boxes occupied the stairs. A roll of ribbon lay across the arm of the couch. On the kitchen island, 3 glass cylinders contained slightly different arrangements of eucalyptus. "Don't touch those," Claire said when she saw me looking. "They're numbered. I wasn't planning to. You have an expression, I have a face. Your face has subcategories." Evan put the bakery box on the island. "Where do you want the runners?" he asked. "Dining table." Claire opened one bag and pulled out the top length of blue fabric. The cream stitching ended midway down one edge. "She only finished 6? "Correct." "I need 12. I'm aware. Did she cut the rest?" "There's cut fabric underneath." "What about thread?" "I didn't inventory the thread." Claire dropped the runner back into the bag. "I'm not blaming you. That's comforting." "Dad, please." Evan opened the bakery box. His eyebrows rose. "She wrote all these." Joanne did. "By hand?" "Unless she's been concealing a small printing press." He picked up a card. "These are really good, I know." Claire joined us and began shifting the stacks. "Where are the M names? Some are unfinished. I can see that. I'm asking where they are. In the box, I assume." "The finished cards are alphabetical, but the blanks aren't." I watched her move through the pile faster. For Claire, panic rarely looked like panic. It looked like anger at inadequate labeling. "Joanne had a list," she said. "In the binder, most likely." She pulled the binder toward her and turned pages. Blue tab, yellow tab, green tab. The kind of order Claire dismissed until it stopped serving her. Evan found a page near the back. Place cards. Claire took it from him. A handwritten list ran down the page, names checked off in Joanne's small, upright print. At the bottom, she had added a note. Claire wanted couples seated across, not beside, except Linda and Mark due to hearing aids. Claire stared at it. "I told her that once," she said. "Apparently she listened once," I replied. "Dad." "What?" "You don't have to narrate every piece of evidence against me." Evan put the card back in the box. "Maybe we should all sit down." "I don't want to sit down," Claire said. "Then we can stand in a calmer way." She turned on him. "Are you taking his side now? I don't think your dad and I have formed a side. You questioned me for an hour last night. I asked why Joanne wasn't invited. You never cared before. I thought she was coming. You assumed." The word made me look at him. He saw it happen. "Yes," he said. "I know." Claire folded her arms. "Apparently every man in this room is innocent, because he assumed some woman was handling it." "Not innocent," Evan said. "Just late." I liked him a little more for that, though Claire clearly did not. She closed the binder. The ceremony list was my decision. "It's our ceremony," Evan said. "And you told me the people mattered more than the head count." I did. "So Rick matters because he keeps Mom calm. Joanne doesn't need to be there because Dad doesn't need managing." "That is a terrible reason," I said. "I didn't say it was the only reason." "What are the others?" Claire looked at me, and for a moment her anger thinned enough for me to see something older behind it. She wasn't there for the part of my life I'm honoring. Neither was Rick. Rick doesn't pretend he was. Joanne has never pretended that. She acts like we've all always been this one big family. She sets a table for the people who arrive. She rearranged every holiday. Because your mother refused to come if Joanne hosted on Christmas Day. Mom had traditions, Joanne had a home. Evan moved his coffee mug away from the edge of the island, a minor act of self-preservation. Claire's mouth tightened. "I knew you'd turn this into Mom versus Joanne. You built a ceremony where one gets a partner and the other has to send hers alone. That is not what I'm doing. Then tell me what you are doing." She looked down at the binder. The room went quiet except for the heating system ticking inside the wall. Finally, Claire said, "Mom made it clear she wouldn't come without Rick." There it was. Not preference, not history, a boundary. Sharon had asked to have hers respected. I had offered mine up for negotiation before anyone requested it. "And I didn't make anything clear," I said. Claire looked up. "You didn't seem bothered." "I should have been." "You don't get to be retroactively offended because Joanne overheard one conversation." "No, I get to realize I've been wrong." Her expression shifted again, unease passing beneath the anger. Claire was comfortable with my apologies when they ended a discussion. She did not know what to do with one that changed my behavior. I took my place card from my jacket pocket and set it on the binder. She recognized Joanne's lettering immediately. What is that supposed to mean? It means I won't be at the ceremony without my wife. Evan looked at me, then at Claire. She laughed once. You're giving me an ultimatum. No. You just said I have to invite her. I said what I'm going to do. That's an ultimatum. No, an ultimatum is designed to make you change your decision. You can invite whoever you want, and you won't walk me in. My chest tightened. Claire had never asked whether I would walk her into the ceremony. We had both behaved as though it were understood. I had pictured it more often than I admitted. Her hand looped through my arm, our steps measured, me trying not to make a joke because she would be too nervous to appreciate one. I won't come alone, I said. She stared at me. You're choosing her over your own daughter. I'm refusing to help you disrespect my wife. Same thing. No, Claire, you always do this. You make a decision that blows up everybody else's life. Then you speak quietly so you can pretend you're the reasonable one. Her words hit with the accuracy of long practice. Evan said her name. No, she snapped. He doesn't get to walk in here and act brave because Joanne finally got mad. Where was all this loyalty when he was married to Mom? That isn't what this is about, I said. It's always what this is about. I did not leave your mother for Joanne. I didn't say you did. You've been saying it without the words for 13 years. Her eyes flashed. And you've been denying it without ever telling me what actually happened. I opened my mouth. Nothing useful came. Claire gave a small, bitter nod. Exactly. Evan moved closer to her, but she stepped away from him. You can take your place card, she said. I don't want it. I looked down at my name in Joanne's careful handwriting. No, I said. You keep it. For what? To remember I had a place because she made me one. Claire's face crumpled for half a second, then hardened so quickly I might have imagined it. I left before my calm could become another performance. On the front step, the loose brick shifted under my heel. Evan followed me out and caught the storm door before it closed. I'll fix that, he said, looking down at the step. Don't promise repairs during a family crisis. He almost smiled. Then he shoved his hands into his pockets. She's not heartless, Daniel. I know. She's scared. So is my wife. He nodded. Behind him, something struck the kitchen counter. Not thrown exactly, but set down hard. Evan glanced toward the sound. I should go back in. You should. I reached my car before he called after me. For what it's worth, I think Joanne should be there. I turned. Tell Claire, I said. His eyes moved toward the door. That's harder. I'm starting to understand that's usually the point. I drove home by way of 3 streets I didn't need to take. At a red light, I picked up my phone to call Joanne, then set it back down. I wanted to tell her I had refused to attend the ceremony without her. In my mind, the sentence sounded decisive and loyal. It also sounded like I expected a medal. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I had 1 missed call from Claire and 2 from Sharon. The first voicemail from Sharon lasted 11 seconds. Daniel, call me before this gets any more ridiculous. The second lasted 6. It has gotten more ridiculous. I went inside, put my keys on the table, and called Joanne instead. She answered after 4 rings. Is everything all right? Yes. Your voice says someone is at the hospital. No one is at the hospital. Then next time, lead with that. I sat in the chair beside the front window. I took everything to Claire. How did that go? She wasn't pleased. I'm shocked. Evan was there. Is he still alive? As of 10:20. Joanne was quiet, but I could hear dishes in the background and Paula saying something about a colander. I told Claire I won't attend the ceremony without you, I said. The dishes stopped. There, I had said it. Oh, Joanne replied. Not thank you, not Daniel, just, oh, I thought you should know. I appreciate you telling me. I waited, giving her the opportunity to be more appreciative. She did not use it. You don't think I did the right thing? I asked. I think you made your own decision. That sounds carefully neutral. It's been less than 24 hours. I'm trying not to hand out grades. I didn't do it for a grade. No? No. The answer came too quickly. Joanne let the silence sit between us until I saw what she saw. I had made one firm statement to Claire and immediately called my wife to ask whether I had become a better man. I did it because I meant it, I said. I'm glad. Claire thinks you made me. I assumed she would. I told her you didn't. And that fixed it? No. A cupboard closed on her end. I rubbed my forehead. I'm trying, Joanne. I know you are. You say that like trying is another problem. It isn't. But you still sound as if the issue is whether I get a chair at Claire's ceremony. That's part of it. It's the part you can solve with one sentence. The front window reflected me faintly. Gray hair, wire frame glasses, collar folded under on one side. A man who had left the house ready to deliver a boundary and returned looking like he had misplaced the instructions. "What's the other part?" I asked. "You know, I'd like you to tell me." "No, Daniel, I have told you. I am not going to keep translating my pain into smaller words until it fits comfortably in your hand." Paula said something in the background. Joanne replied, "I'm on the phone." Paula's voice became clearer. "I know, I'm banging things supportively." That was Paula. She could make washing lettuce sound like political resistance. "Tell her I heard that," I said. "She intended you to. Is the mug out of the dishwasher?" "It's drying. I may have a small window." Joanne laughed, but the sound did not settle anything. "I need my gray sweater," she said, "the one with the wide neck. I can bring it." "No, I'll pick it up tomorrow." "I don't mind. I know." There were too many ways for those two words to mean something now. "I'll be here," I said. I assumed. We ended the call without saying, "I love you." Neither of us avoided it deliberately. That made the omission worse. Sharon called again before I could stand. "Were you trapped under something?" she asked. "Hello, Sharon. You used to answer the phone. I used to be married to the person calling, and look how that worked out." Sharon had always preferred to begin a conversation at the point where other people required 10 minutes to arrive. "What did Claire tell you?" I asked. "That Joanne abandoned the wedding, you refused to walk Claire in, Evan has developed opinions, and there's a box full of incomplete stationery on her kitchen island. Joanne didn't abandon anything. She returned work she was doing for an event she had been excluded from. I know, Claire mentioned that part later. After you asked, after I stopped making sympathetic noises. I leaned back in the chair. Did you know Joanne wasn't invited? I knew the ceremony was limited. That seems to be the phrase everyone was given. I assumed she was included. You too? Don't make that sound like evidence of a conspiracy. I don't carry a master list of Claire's guests in my purse. Were you unwilling to attend without Rick? Sharon paused. Is that what Claire said? She said you made it clear. I said it would be awkward to spend the ceremony beside you and Joanne while Rick sat elsewhere. That was before I knew Joanne wasn't coming. So, you didn't insist. I'm perfectly capable of sitting beside you without adult supervision. That hasn't always been true. It was one Thanksgiving and your sister kept refilling my wine. You brought your own bottle. Because your sister buys wine based on the attractiveness of the label. Despite myself, I smiled. Sharon continued, No, I did not threaten to boycott Claire's wedding over Rick. But that is not the point. It's one of them. The point is our daughter is in tears because her father just told her he won't walk her into her wedding. I told her I won't attend without my wife. Same practical result. Not the same meaning. Meanings are your favorite hiding place, Daniel. I closed my eyes. There were people who knew where to place a knife because they had helped map the body. What would you have me do? I asked. Go alone and tell Joanne it's only one morning? I didn't say that. Convince Claire to invite her and then pretend Joanne wants to attend? I didn't say that either. Then what are you calling for? To tell you that Claire is reacting to more than an invitation. She's had 13 years to react. Yes, and you've had 13 years to explain. Explain what? Sharon gave a humorless laugh. You still do that. You make the other person name the unpleasant thing so you can object to their wording. I'm asking what you think Claire needs explained. Why we divorced. She was there. She was 19. She saw me furious and you silent. She saw you move into an apartment and look relieved. Then a few years later, she saw you marry a woman who never raised her voice and kept fresh flowers in the kitchen. Joanne didn't cause our divorce. I know that. Does Claire? You tell me. I stood and walked to the dining room. Joanne's older reading glasses lay near the unfinished cards. I folded one arm, opened it again. I told her there was no affair. You told everyone there was no affair. That isn't the same as telling her what happened. What happened was between us. What happened was all over the house. You want me to tell her we made each other miserable? I want you to stop protecting her from a past she has already invented. I looked out through the dining room window. The flower beds needed weeding. Joanne would normally have done it that weekend, not because I expected her to, but because she claimed pulling weeds cleared her head. I had once joked that our yard depended on family conflict. Joanne had not laughed. I'm not discussing this over the phone, I said. Good. Meet me at Denny's in 20 minutes. Why Denny's? Because no one has ever had a romantic reconciliation at Denny's. You seem very sure. I've eaten there. She hung up. The Denny's sat beside a tire store and smelled faintly of syrup no matter where you sat. Sharon was already in a booth when I arrived, wearing a red jacket and sunglasses on top of her head. At 63, she still looked like she was waiting for someone to challenge her to organize a committee. She had ordered coffee for both of us. I drink decaf now, I said. I know, that's decaf. The fact that she remembered unsettled me. I sat across from her. How's Rick? Confused. He thought being excluded from family drama was one of his retirement benefits. Smart man, don't get attached. He thinks your shirts are too large. I looked down. This shirt fits. It has weather. A server brought cream. Sharon pushed it toward me without asking. For the record, she said, Claire was wrong to say what she said. Thank you. And Joanne was right to stop helping. Thank you again. And you handled everything badly. There it is. You waited until the cruelty became audible to decide it existed. I stirred my coffee, though I had not added anything. I didn't know Claire thought our marriage was an arrangement. Of course you did. No, I didn't. You knew she called Joanne reliable instead of loving. You knew she asked Joanne for favors and asked you for permission. You knew she referred to my marriage as our family, and yours as your situation. I thought she was being careful with you. Sharon's expression changed. For the first time since I sat down, she looked tired. She wasn't protecting me, Daniel. She was protecting the version of me she needed. Which version is that? The one you abandoned. The words sat between the coffee cups. I didn't abandon you. No. You stayed 3 years longer than either of us should have, then left so quietly I had to make noise for both of us. We agreed the marriage was over. In the kitchen at 1 a.m, Claire didn't hear that part. You told her? I told her we tried. We did. Yes. And then, because I was hurt and angry, I let her believe trying made me innocent. I had not expected that from Sharon. She looked toward the window where a man in coveralls was rolling a tire across the parking lot. I'm not proud of everything I let her think, she said. But don't sit there waiting for me to clean it up alone. What do you want me to tell her? The truth. That's a large subject. Start small. Tell her Joanne wasn't the reward you got for leaving us. She knows that. No, Sharon said. She knows there wasn't an affair. She thinks Joanne was the life you wanted while you were still trapped in ours. I stared at her. The server topped off our coffee. Neither of us moved until she left. And what do you think? I asked. Sharon's eyes met mine. I think you were lonely long before you met Joanne, she said. So was I. The difference is, you found a way to become happy afterward, and for a while, I hated you for making it look so easy. It wasn't easy, I know that now. I looked down at the pale coffee circling my spoon. Does Claire? Sharon shook her head. Then maybe, she said, you should finally stop being calm long enough to tell her. I drank half the decaf before admitting I didn't like it. Sharon signaled the server and ordered me regular coffee. You'll be awake all night, she said. I was awake all last night, so ruin one problem at a time. When the new cup arrived, I wrapped both hands around it. Sharon added sweetener to hers, stirred, tasted it, and added another packet. During our marriage, she had insisted one was enough. Either her tastes had changed, or she had finally stopped negotiating with an imaginary jury. You said you let Claire believe things, I said. I did. What things? Sharon sat back. Don't sound so eager. You're not about to receive a certificate of innocence. I'm asking. I let her believe I wanted to save the marriage longer than I did. You were the one who suggested counseling, because I wanted the counselor to declare me right. I stared at her. She shrugged. It was not my most spiritually evolved period. You went for 8 months. The woman was very slow. I laughed despite myself. Sharon smiled into her coffee. It had been years since we had talked this way, without Claire present or some holiday requiring us to behave like two nations signing a temporary ceasefire. I had forgotten that Sharon could be funny about herself. Near the end of our marriage, I heard only the sharpness. She heard only the silence. She did help, I said. The counselor? Yes. She helped us get divorced. That counts. Sharon considered that, then nodded. We were both relieved, she said. That's the part Claire never saw. You left the house, and I cried for 3 weeks. She thought the tears meant I wanted you back. Did you? Not once. The answer should not have hurt. It did slightly. Sharon noticed. "Oh, don't look injured. You didn't want me back either." "I know. Relief can make you grieve." We had 22 years of habits. I missed the person who knew I hated wet bath mats. I did not miss you standing in the garage for 40 minutes because I'd asked what you wanted for dinner. I had projects in the garage. You alphabetized screws. They were different sizes. You put labels on the drawer. That is how drawers work. She laughed, then covered her mouth because the sound came out louder than intended. A man at the counter glanced toward us. For a few seconds, we were not former spouses dissecting the damage we had handed our daughter. We were simply two people who remembered the same ridiculous house. Then Sharon looked down at her coffee. Claire stayed angry because anger gave the divorce a shape, she said. I should have told her sooner that there wasn't a villain. I should have too. Yes. You could let me finish the apology. I waited 22 years for you to finish sentences. I set my spoon down. I thought staying calm kept things from getting worse. Sometimes it did. That surprised me. Sharon continued. You stopped plenty of fights that didn't need to happen. You also stopped conversations that did. After a while, I couldn't tell which was which, so I treated every disagreement like a fire alarm, and I treated every alarm like burnt toast. There, that's probably the nicest summary of our marriage we'll ever get. I looked out at the parking lot again. The man in coveralls had disappeared. One tire remained standing by itself near the service bay. What do we say to Claire? I asked. You tell her your part. I'll tell her mine. Together? No, she'll think we rehearsed it to defend Joanne. Aren't we defending Joanne? We're correcting something that should have been corrected years ago. If you turn it into a trial where our daughter is the defendant, she won't hear any of it. I did not enjoy receiving good advice from Sharon. It made too many old arguments less convenient. She'll say we're rewriting history. We are. The first draft was bad. When are you talking to her? When she calls me without using the word betrayed. That could take a while. She used it 4 times before noon. About me, twice about you, once about Joanne, and once about the cake baker, which I believe weakened the overall effect. I rubbed my face. What did the baker do? Required a check. That was already in the binder. I know. Claire has mentioned the binder frequently. I could picture her flipping through Joanne's tabs, discovering the wedding had been running on a system she had treated like weather. Sharon reached for the bill when it came. I've got it, I said. You can get the next divorce summit. I hope there isn't one. So does Rick. He's at home pretending not to check the time. I paid. Outside, Sharon put on her sunglasses and turned toward me before unlocking her car. One more thing, she said. What? Don't tell Claire you found the love of your life. Not yet. I stiffened. Why not? Because right now she'll hear, your mother wasn't? That's not what it means. I know, you know. Claire is still keeping score in a game that ended 18 years ago. I'm not going to minimize Joanne to protect her. I didn't say minimize her. I said tell the truth without using your happiness as a weapon. She opened her car door. Since when did you get this sensible? I asked. Rick makes excellent breakfasts. Convenient. Sharon removed her sunglasses just far enough to look at me over them. Too soon, Daniel. I went home and weeded the front flower bed. I did not especially enjoy weeding. Joanne was right that pulling something up by the root could clear your mind, but only if you already knew which plants were weeds. I spent 10 minutes comparing 2 nearly identical green shoots, then removed both to avoid favoritism. At 11 the next morning, Joanne's car stopped at the curb. I stood too quickly and hit my knee against the coffee table. By the time she came in, I was leaning against the wall, pretending I had chosen that location. You don't have to knock, I told her. I didn't. She held up her key. Right. Joanne wore jeans and a pale green shirt Paula had given her the previous Christmas. No makeup. Silver loops again. She looked like herself, which felt unfair considering the house had spent 2 days looking like a witness protection version of itself. She glanced through the front window. What happened to the flower bed? I weeded. You removed the salvia. I made decisions. So I see. She walked upstairs without taking off her shoes. I followed, not close enough to crowd her, and not far enough to pretend I had somewhere else to be. In the bedroom, she took the gray sweater from the closet. Then she added 2 more shirts and a pair of pants to the canvas bag she had brought. How long are you staying? I asked. I don't know. Paula lives in a 2-bedroom condo with 3 decorative ladders. She's moved one ladder to the balcony. That seems serious. It was blocking the linen closet. Joanne went into the bathroom. I picked up her older glasses from the dresser where I had placed them. You left these downstairs. I took the backup pair. I figured. She returned with a small bottle of face wash. I held out the glasses. Our fingers touched when she took them. Neither of us moved for half a second, then she folded them and slipped them into her purse. I met Sharon yesterday, I said. Joanne's hand stopped inside the purse. On purpose? At Denny's. That answers only part of the question. She called after I left Claire's. Joanne zipped the purse. How is Sharon better at divorce than marriage? That makes two of you. I deserved it, but the remark still landed. She admitted that she let Claire think she wanted to save our marriage longer than she did. Joanne sat on the edge of the bed. That must have been difficult for her to say. It was difficult for me to hear. Those are not mutually exclusive. No. I sat in the chair near the window, leaving the bed to her. She said, Claire thinks you were the life I wanted while I was trapped in the old one. Joanne studied me. Were you? She asked. Was I what? Trapped? Near the end, yes. And was I the life you wanted? I didn't know you yet. That isn't quite an answer. I wasn't sitting in my marriage imagining you, if that's what you mean. No, Daniel, I don't think there was an affair, emotional or otherwise. I'm asking whether you married me because you wanted me, or because I represented a quiet house where no one asked you to fight. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. I wanted you. You proposed by saying we worked well together. That wasn't all I said. You also said there was no reason to complicate a good thing. In my defense, I was nervous. You checked the restaurant bill halfway through. I thought they charged us for another bottle of wine. They had. I was right. Joanne looked toward the ceiling, and a reluctant smile touched her mouth. I loved you, I said. I love you. I believe you. Then why are we arguing about the proposal? Because Claire's words hurt in a place that already existed. The smile was gone. She looked down at her hands. Our marriage did make sense, she said. We were both lonely. We liked the same kind of weekends. I wanted a home that didn't feel like an argument. And you wanted someone who would actually answer when you asked what was wrong. You don't always answer. I say nothing. It's very clear. I almost smiled, but her expression stopped me. I thought your practical language was sweet, she continued. For years, I thought it was your way of protecting something private. Then I watched you use the same language with Claire because saying you were happy with me seemed safer than saying you chose me. I did choose you, in this room, at our table, on vacations. But whenever Claire was present, you made our marriage smaller so she wouldn't have to feel its size. I sat back. Down the street, a lawnmower started. The sound rose and fell as someone turned at the edge of a yard. I'm going to tell her the truth about the divorce, I said. Good. Sharon is too. Also good. I thought you'd have more reaction. Joanne stood and lifted the canvas bag. Don't turn the past into evidence that I deserve an invitation. I'm not. Don't make our marriage the winning exhibit against your daughter. I said, I'm not. You're doing it again. What? That edge. As if my refusal to be reassured is the next obstacle. I looked away. Joanne's face softened, but she did not rescue me. When you talk to Claire, she said, don't go there to prove she was wrong about us. Go there willing to tell her where she was, right about you. She carried the bag downstairs. At the door, she paused beside the empty space where the wedding materials had been. Have you eaten anything besides crackers? Yes. What? Coffee. That's not food. It had cream. Joanne closed her eyes briefly. There are eggs in the refrigerator. I know how eggs work. You once tried to poach one in a cereal bowl. The internet was unclear. She almost laughed again. I wanted that laugh badly enough to ask her to stay. Instead, I opened the door. I'll call Claire, I said. Joanne stepped onto the porch. Call her because she's your daughter, not because I'm waiting for a report. After she drove away, I stood in the kitchen holding 2 eggs and feeling oddly supervised. My phone rang before I found the frying pan. It was Evan. Daniel, he said, his voice low. Can I ask you something without Claire knowing I called? That depends on what it is. A door closed on his end. When you asked Joanne to marry you, he said, did you know why you were doing it? I looked at the eggs in my hand. Yes, I said. It was the answer a future father-in-law was supposed to give. Evan was quiet. Then he said, Claire told me people don't really marry for love. They marry because their lives fit. 1 egg slipped in my grip. I caught it against the counter before it fell. What did you say? I asked if that's why she's marrying me. And she couldn't answer. I put the eggs down. Is Claire there? I asked. She went to her mother's. Does Sharon know why? I don't know. Claire said she needed to talk to someone who wasn't analyzing her. That sounds like Sharon. I didn't mean to analyze her. No one ever does. Evan exhaled. I thought we agreed on what marriage meant. What did you agree? That we were building a life. We want the same things. We handle problems well together. It sounded uncomfortably familiar. What things? I asked. Stability, travel, our careers, a place that feels like ours. And what? Do you love her? Of course I love her. Then why didn't you say that first? The line went quiet. I had not intended it as a trick. The question had simply come out. And once it was there, neither of us could pretend not to see it. Evan said, "That's what I asked her." You asked Claire if she loved you? I asked whether she was marrying me because she loved me or because I fit the life she planned. That's a dangerous question to ask someone during an argument. Is it less dangerous when everyone is calm? I looked toward the front window. Across the street, a woman was trying to fold a lawn chair without reading the instructions printed on its underside. She closed it on her own fingers, swore, and kicked one leg. Don't use what happened with Joanne to test Claire, I said. I'm not testing her. You called her father after she couldn't give you an answer you liked. I called because I thought you might understand. I do. That's why I'm telling you not to make me part of your side. There aren't sides. That's what people say before they start recruiting. Evan was quiet again. I imagined him standing in the narrow upstairs hallway of the townhouse, speaking softly because the walls made privacy theoretical. He was a good man, as far as I knew. He was also frightened, and frightened people sometimes turn one unanswered question into a courtroom. I've watched Claire plan this wedding like a project at work, he said. Every choice has a reason. Every guest has a function. Even the vows have a word limit. That sounds like Claire. I thought it was nerves, but last night she said love is what people call compatibility when they want it to sound romantic. I leaned against the counter. Did she say she doesn't love you? No. Did she say she wants to call off the wedding? No. Then don't turn a bad night into an answer. You just refused to attend the ceremony over one bad phone call. That call revealed a pattern I'd ignored for 13 years. What if this revealed one I ignored? I had no honest response to that. The egg I had nearly dropped showed a hairline crack. A spot of clear white bulged through the shell. What do you want from me, Evan? I don't know. That's probably the truth. He gave a short laugh without humor. I don't want to hurt her, he said. Then don't discuss her with me longer than you discuss this with her. She won't talk to me, she will. How do you know? Because not talking is my specialty, and Claire hates anything she inherited from me. A door opened on his end. Evan lowered his voice. I have to go. Is she back? No. I just thought I heard. The call ended. I cracked both eggs into a frying pan. One yolk broke. The other remained whole, but attached itself to the pan with an enthusiasm that suggested I had misunderstood oil. By the time I sat down to eat, Claire was calling. Did Evan call you? She asked. Hello, Claire. Please don't do that. Do what? Make me perform normal conversation while you inspect my manners. I put down my fork. Yes, he called. What did he say? That's between him and me. You're discussing my marriage. He asked about mine. I know why he called. Then why are you asking? Because I want to know how much worse you made it. The eggs were already cooling. I told him to talk to you, I said. Did you tell him I'm incapable of love because my parents got divorced? No. Did you tell him I've secretly believed marriage is fake all this time? No. Did you tell him you're a shining example of true devotion now that you've threatened to skip your daughter's wedding? No, Claire. Well, he has the idea from somewhere. He got it from what you said. A breath came through the phone, uneven this time. You don't understand. Then help me. I don't want to have this conversation with you. Fine. Have it with Evan. He packed a bag. I stared at the broken yolk spreading across my plate. Where did he go? His brother's. For how long? He said one night. Then give him one night. You sound like this is reasonable. I don't know if it's reasonable. I know chasing him to his brother's house won't improve it. You let Joanne leave. I didn't let her do anything. She's an adult. You always make leaving sound so dignified. The sentence reached backward through 18 years and found me without resistance. Come over, I said. No. I'm not asking you to finish this on the phone. I said no. All right. She seemed thrown by my agreement. I took a bite of egg. It tasted like warm rubber and pepper. Are you eating? Claire asked. Yes. What? Eggs. Joanne came home? No. So you made eggs. I have lived independently before. Not convincingly. There she was for half a second. My daughter beneath the armor, teasing me because she had watched me burn grilled cheese twice in the same pan when she was 21 and home from college. Then her voice tightened again. Mom said you two talked. We did. She won't tell me what you said. Because I should. I don't want a carefully edited speech about the divorce. Neither do I. Then what? I don't know yet. Great. But I know I should have told you more than I did. She said nothing. I pushed the plate away. You were right about something yesterday, I said. I've been denying your version of the divorce without ever giving you mine. That's not what I meant. It's still true. What? You're finally going to tell me Mom was difficult? No, she was. So was I. Another silence. I don't know what you want me to say to that, Claire said. You don't have to say anything. You always want something when you admit fault. That hurt because it was close enough to a habit I recognized. My apologies had often been trades. I'll admit this much, and then everyone must stop being upset. I want you to come over, I said. But you don't owe me forgiveness, agreement, or an invitation for Joanne. Are you going to apologize for refusing to walk me in? No. Then I don't see the point. The point is that I'm your father, and you're hurting. I was hurting before you noticed. I know. Her breathing changed. I thought she might be crying, but Claire had learned silent crying from me and angry recovery from Sharon. I'll come by, she said. Not now? When? This afternoon. What time? I don't know, Dad. I'm not scheduling a dental cleaning. She hung up. At 2:30, I heard her key in the front door. She still carried the copy I had given her when Joanne and I moved into the house, though she rarely used it. Claire stepped inside, holding my place card between two fingers. She had changed into jeans and a navy sweater. Her hair was down now, brushed straight. The more upset Claire became, the more orderly she looked. I told you to keep that, I said. You say a lot of things. She placed the card on the dining room table beside the navy pen. Coffee? I asked. No. Tea? I'm not staying long. That wasn't the question. She looked at me. Water. I brought 2 glasses and sat across from her. The empty chair between us was Joanne's usual place. Claire noticed me noticing it. Is she still at Paula's? Yes. Has she said when she's coming back? No. Are you blaming me for that? I blame myself for most of it. That's not an answer. I don't know how much belongs to you. She turned her water glass slowly, leaving a ring of moisture on the wood. You and Mom were unhappy, she said. There. Mystery solved. We were. You fought. Sometimes. She fought. You disappeared. I was in the house. You were in the garage. Fair. You went to work early, came home late, and sat in the driveway listening to the end of songs you didn't even like. I looked at her. She had noticed that. I used to drive home with the radio low. If a song was playing when I pulled into the driveway, I let it finish. Sometimes 2 songs. Once, I sat through an entire call-in segment about lawn fungus. I thought you were studying, I said. I was 19, not blind. No, Mom cried. You organized things. I didn't know what else to do. You moved out, and within a month, you looked 10 years younger. That doesn't mean I was glad to leave you. You left the house. I left the marriage. I lived in the house. The distinction I had relied on for 18 years collapsed in one sentence. I should have talked to you before I moved, I said. You told me 3 days before. We had just decided. You had been deciding for years, yes. And I got 3 days. I looked down at my hands. Yes. Claire's eyes shone, but her voice stayed level. Then you got your quiet apartment. You bought square white plates because Mom's dishes had flowers and you hated them. You looked happy. Every time I saw you, you asked if I needed money or help with my car, like you had become a service desk. I didn't know how to be with you when everything we had in common was the house I'd left. You could have tried. I thought giving you space was trying. It wasn't. No. She wiped one cheek quickly, annoyed by the tear. And then Joanne came along, she said. She was calm. She liked your square plates. She never made you sit in the driveway. I met Joanne years later. I know the calendar. Then what are you saying? I'm saying she looked like proof. Of what? That you could have been happy all along. Just not with us. The words settled over the table. I wanted to deny them. I wanted to explain that happiness was not a resource Sharon and Claire had failed to extract from me. I wanted to separate marriage from parenthood cleanly enough that no one bled across the line. Instead, I said, I understand why it looked that way. Claire's face tightened, disappointed even by agreement. But Joanne wasn't proof that you were the problem, I continued. She was a person I met after I finally admitted I had problems of my own. You never said that? I'm saying it now. Because she left. Yes. The honesty startled her. Yes, I repeated. Because she left. Because you said something cruel. Because Evan asked you a question you couldn't answer. And because I waited too long. I don't get to choose the reason that finally made me speak. Claire stared at my place card. Evan wants to postpone, she said. My stomach dropped. Did he say that? He said we shouldn't get married until I can explain why I want to. That isn't the same as calling it off. It feels the same. No, it feels uncertain. To you, maybe. She picked up my place card and bent it slightly between her fingers. You know what I told him? She asked. I told him love changes. Compatibility is what remains. That isn't entirely wrong. He asked if that's what I learned from you. I looked at the careful navy letters of my name bowing in her hands. What did you say? Claire put the card down. I told him I learned from you that the person who needs less always gets to leave. That isn't what happened, I said. Claire gave me a tired look. You left. I did. You didn't ask Mom to change. You didn't ask me to understand. You just decided you were done. I asked your mother to change plenty of times. Quietly, I'm sure. Sometimes. And when she didn't hear you, I got quieter. Claire pressed her lips together. She had expected an argument, not confirmation. I thought needing things made everything worse, I said. Your mother needed me to be more present, so I felt accused. I needed her to be less angry, so she felt controlled. We both started treating the other person's need like an attack. So you stopped needing her. No, I stopped telling her. What's the difference? One kills a marriage slowly. The other only looks like it does. Claire looked toward the window. Outside, a branch scraped lightly against the glass. Joanne had asked me to trim it 2 weeks earlier. I had said I would do it Saturday. It was Saturday. You never looked scared, Claire said. I was scared most of the time. Of Mom, of conflict, of making the wrong decision, of saying something I couldn't take back. So you said nothing, mostly. That must have been nice for you. It wasn't, but it was easier for everyone else to see your mother's anger than my absence. Claire wiped the moisture ring from the table with the side of her hand. Mom told me she was lonely, she said. She was. She said she felt married to a locked door. That sounds like Sharon. You say that whenever she describes you in a way you don't like. I sat back. You're right. Claire blinked. I could almost see her searching for the hidden second half of my sentence. Your mother was loud about pain, I said. I was polite about it. That made hers look destructive and mine look reasonable. Is that what happened with Joanne? The question went into me cleanly. I hope not. That's not an answer. No, it's not. She waited. I don't disappear from Joanne the way I did from your mother, I said. But I still try to manage discomfort instead of facing it. I let you dismiss her because correcting you might have cost me time with you. And now it may cost me both of you. Claire looked down at my place card. You make that sound noble. It isn't. If I had done this years ago, it might have been. She pushed the card across the table until it stopped in front of me. Do you love her more than you loved Mom? I did not pick it up. Love isn't a scoreboard. That means yes. It means I won't use one marriage to insult the other. Mom said you'd do that. What else did she say? That I should ask you why you stayed so long. I glanced toward the clock. Sharon had apparently begun her part sooner than expected. Why did you? Claire asked. Because leaving felt like failure. Because our finances and friendships and routines were tangled together. Because I loved your mother, even when I didn't know how to live with her. Because I didn't want you to think I was choosing myself over our family. You did anyway. Yes? Her face tightened. I continued before I could retreat. And because I was comfortable in my unhappiness. I knew the rules. Your mother got angry, I withdrew, she got angrier, and then I could tell myself her anger was the reason I withdrew. It was a very efficient system. Claire stared at me. That sounds awful. It was. Joanne doesn't get angry. Joanne gets angry, not like Mom. No. She packs a well-organized bag and leaves me with uncooked eggs. The faintest smile appeared, then vanished. Was she really the first person you dated after the divorce? No. Claire's eyebrows rose. Who else? That is not relevant. It suddenly feels extremely relevant. There were 3 women over several years, 2 dinners with one, 4 with another, and 1 terrible weekend in Baltimore that we will not be exploring. What happened in Baltimore? Jazz? That's all? It was experimental. Claire leaned back, almost smiling again. I thought Joanne was the first. I know. Why didn't you tell me? You were angry when you found out I had gone to dinner with anyone. I was 20. You called me a cliché and didn't speak to me for 9 days. I was dramatic. You mailed my apartment key back in a padded envelope. I wanted it to arrive safely. For one strange moment, we were both trying not to laugh. The air loosened around us. Then Claire looked at Joanne's empty chair. How did you meet her? At a volunteer garden behind the community center. She asked if I knew the difference between a weed and a flower. Did you? No, I gave a confident answer. And? I pulled out 6 marigolds. Claire did laugh then, softly. That tracks. Joanne said she admired a man willing to destroy something with conviction. That also tracks. I remember Joanne kneeling in the dirt in an old red shirt, her hair tied back with a shoelace. She had not been especially calm that morning. She had argued with the garden coordinator about where to put the tomatoes and threatened to take her shovel home. The quiet woman Claire thought I had selected had never existed. Joanne was simply careful about where she spent her force. Were you lonely? Claire asked. Yes. Was she? Yes. So it was convenient. There was no malice in the word this time. That made it more difficult. In the beginning, parts of it were, I said. We lived close. We liked the same restaurants. Neither of us wanted drama. That's what I said. No, you said convenience was the marriage. What's the difference? Convenience got us through the door. It didn't sit beside me when my father stopped recognizing my voice. It didn't spend 6 months eating dinner at 8 because you were working late and kept calling Joanne from your car. It didn't teach me how to make soup after her surgery, although, to be fair, neither did the internet. Claire's expression shifted at the mention of those calls. I didn't ask her to wait up. No, she wanted to. You did too. Yes. Then why are you acting like I only used her? Because you let her love you as long as nobody called it love. Claire flinched. I regretted the sentence as soon as it left me, not because it was entirely wrong, but because I had sharpened it for effect. That was unfair, I said. No. Keep going. This is the honesty everyone wanted. I'm not trying to punish you. You're doing a good job accidentally. I'm sorry. She stood and carried her water glass to the sink. Did Joanne tell you to say all this? No. Of course not. She never tells anyone what to do. She just quietly becomes indispensable, and then everybody feels terrible when she stops. That's not fair to her. Neither is pretending she has no power. I watched Claire rinse the glass. That surprised me because it was true. Joanne's generosity was genuine, but so was the place it created for her. Being needed had made it possible to belong, without demanding to be named. Claire was not the only one who had benefited from that arrangement. She should have said no sooner, I said. Claire turned off the water. Would you have backed her? I looked at the empty bakery box space by the door. I don't know. At least you're honest now? She dried her hands on the towel and returned to the table. What am I supposed to do? She asked. About what? All of it. I don't know. Dad, I can tell you what not to do. That's useful. Don't invite Joanne just to get me back into the ceremony. So, you don't want her invited? I want her wanted. How am I supposed to prove that? You aren't supposed to prove anything to me. Claire sat down hard. This is impossible. If I don't invite her, I'm cruel. If I do, it's manipulation. If I ask her to finish the cards, I'm using her. If I don't ask, I'm shutting her out. Yes. That's your answer? It's complicated because you waited until the insult to examine the relationship. I recognized the situation. She looked at me with open irritation. What do I say to Evan? The truth. Everybody keeps saying that, like the truth is sitting in a drawer. What were you hoping marriage to Evan would feel like? Safe. The answer came immediately. Safe how? He doesn't disappear. He says what he means. If he's upset, he tells me before it becomes a decision. I let that settle. Claire heard it too, her eyes closed. That isn't the only reason, she said. I didn't say it was. He makes me laugh. He knows when I'm pretending not to care. He brings me coffee even after we argue. Those sound less like compatibility and more like love. They sound small. Most love sounds small when you list it. She looked at her hands. What if I can't promise it lasts? She asked. No one can. Then what are vows for? To promise what you'll do when the feeling becomes harder to recognize. You didn't. No, Mom didn't. No. Her voice thinned. Then why should Evan believe me? Because you're not us. Claire sat very still. After a while, she picked up her purse. At the door, she turned back toward the table. Are you taking that? She asked, nodding at my place card. No. Why not? Joanne made it for your wedding. Claire swallowed. We'll talk later, she said. I nearly asked when. Instead, I nodded. She left the card on the table. That evening, I trimmed the branch outside the dining room window. I cut too much from one side and spent 20 minutes trying to balance it before accepting that trees did not respond well to cosmetic reasoning. Joanne texted to ask if Claire had come. Yes, I wrote. We talked. A minute passed. How did it go? I typed, honestly, then deleted it because it sounded like a claim. Painfully, I wrote instead. Joanne replied, that may be honest. At 9, Sharon called. Claire's here, she said. How is she? Angry at everyone. It's very nostalgic. Did you talk? We're about to. Do you want me there? No, she needs one parent at a time. Tell her, Sharon cut me off. Do not send a message through me. That's how we got here. She hung up. I went upstairs, read 3 pages of a book without understanding a sentence, and came back down. At 11:30, my phone rang. Claire's name lit the screen. When I answered, her voice was stripped of anger. Mom told me everything, she said. What does everything mean? That she wanted the divorce too. That she let me blame you because she was hurt. That you both knew it was over before either of you admitted it to me. I sat in Joanne's chair. I'm sorry. Claire breathed in shakily. Evan came home, she said. That's good. No, it isn't. My hand tightened around the phone. We postponed the wedding. I closed my eyes. Postponed until when? We don't know. Whose decision was it? Does it matter? Yes. Evan said we shouldn't keep planning while we're asking each other whether we should get married. That sounds like both of you decided, he said it first. Claire. What? Did you agree? She breathed into the phone. I could hear Sharon moving somewhere behind her, a cupboard opening and then closing. Yes, Claire said. Then say we. I knew you'd make that distinction. It matters. Why? Because if I agreed, you don't have to feel guilty. I feel plenty guilty. Good. The word was sharp, but the sob that followed it was not. I gripped the phone and waited. Everything in me wanted to start solving. I could call Evan. I could offer to mediate. I could remind them that frightened people said extreme things, and that 6 weeks was enough time to repair almost anything if you reduce sleep and increase coffee. Instead, I asked, what do you need right now? I need this not to be happening. I can't do that. You could tell Evan he's overreacting. I won't. Of course not. He's allowed to ask why you're marrying him. He knows why. Then tell him. I did. What did you say? That he's steady. That we want the same life. That I trust him. And he kept asking if I was in love with him, like there was a correct answer. Are you? Yes. The word came out furious. Then why didn't you say it to him? Because he asked like a test. Because love is not a magic substance that makes people stay. Because Mom loved you and you still left. Your mother just told you she wanted the divorce. That doesn't erase 22 years. No. It doesn't erase you being happy afterward. No. It doesn't erase the fact that Joanne can leave too. I looked around the dim dining room. Her reading glasses were gone now. The place where the wedding supplies had been was empty. Her coffee mug sat clean in the cabinet because I had washed it that morning and returned it to its usual hook. No, I said. It doesn't. Claire began crying in earnest. Not loudly. Her breath kept catching, and every few seconds she apologized to someone near her. Sharon, probably because Claire still treated tears like a spill in another person's house. I'll come get you, I said. No, I'm staying here. Is Evan at the townhouse? Yes. He came back, but I left. Do you want me to talk to him? You just said you wouldn't. I said I wouldn't tell him he's overreacting. I'll make sure he's all right. He's fine. Everyone is fine except me. Sharon's voice came faintly. That's enough. Claire answered away from the phone. I'm talking to Dad. I know. You're using him to hurt yourself. I'm not. You are. A rustle followed. Then Sharon's voice came clearly through the receiver. She's staying here tonight, she told me. Thank you. I wasn't asking permission. I know. You should sleep. I'm not tired. Neither is anybody else, but one of us has to stop talking. In the background, Claire said, Give it back. Sharon lowered her voice. Do not call Evan tonight. Do not call Joanne and announce the wedding has collapsed because she stood up for herself. I wasn't going to say it like that. You were going to think it like that. She handed the phone back before I could answer. Claire's voice was quieter. Dad? I'm here. Do you think I'm like you? The question was so soft I almost missed it. Yes, I said. In some ways. Do you think I'll do what you did? No. How do you know? Because you're asking questions I avoided. She was silent. I love you, I said. I know. She ended the call without saying it back. I stayed in Joanne's chair until the screen of my phone went dark. Sharon was right about one thing. I wanted to call Joanne and explain the postponement as proof that Claire's remark had exposed something larger. It would allow the damage to feel productive. It would make the pain a necessary demolition before rebuilding. That was the sort of story people told after things worked out. Nothing had worked out. I waited until 9 the next morning before calling. Joanne answered with a careful, Hi, the wedding is postponed. She said nothing for a second. Oh, Claire. Not satisfaction, not vindication. Her first response was grief for the person who had insulted her. She and Evan agreed to stop planning, I said. They're both reconsidering why they're getting married. Where is she? She stayed with Sharon and Evan at their place. Have you spoken to him? No. Good. I leaned against the kitchen counter. You say that as if I was likely to conduct an intervention. You reorganized a neighbor's garage because he mentioned losing a screwdriver. He was storing paint beside a furnace. You made labels. He still uses them. Joanne sighed, and I heard a door close on her end. She had probably moved away from Paula to speak privately. I don't want Claire to think I caused this, she said. You didn't. She'll think I did. Right now she thinks everyone caused it, including you, especially me. How are you? The question nearly undid me because it was the first time Joanne had asked since leaving. I'm not sure. That's allowed. Is it? For another day or two. I smiled faintly. Claire said, Love isn't what makes people stay, I said. No, it isn't. I thought you'd disagree. Love doesn't lock the door behind you. Then what does it do? It gives you a reason to decide again. I pictured her in Paula's kitchen, perhaps holding that ridiculous mug. Have you decided? I asked. Don't do that. What? Turn something I said about love into a demand for my return date. I wasn't demanding. You were asking in your gentlest voice. That's just my voice. No, it isn't. You have a voice for telemarketers that could frost glass. I smiled, but she remained quiet. Not yet, she said. The words hurt more than I expected. All right, I need more clothes. I can leave the house. That's dramatic. I was trying to give you privacy. I have a key, Daniel. You don't need to evacuate. We agreed she would come Monday afternoon while I was at my woodworking group. The arrangement felt like something negotiated during a separation, though neither of us had used the word. Before hanging up, Joanne said, Don't let this become evidence against Claire. You said that already. I know. I'm saying it because a postponed wedding is the kind of consequence people enjoy too much when they feel righteous. I don't enjoy it. Good. She ended the call. By noon, the family learned. Claire told only a few people, but a postponement traveled faster than an engagement because concern gave everyone moral permission to repeat it. My sister Diane called while I was trying to make a sandwich. Diane had been the person refilling Sharon's wine at the Thanksgiving, both women still referenced like a regional conflict. She was 67, loyal, generous, and most comfortable when someone else's crisis gave her a clipboard. What did you do? She asked. Hello, Diane. Claire says the wedding is postponed and Joanne left you. She didn't leave me. Where is she sleeping? At Paula's. She left you, temporarily. Why didn't you call me? Because this is my marriage. That has never stopped anyone in this family before. I put mustard on the bread. What did Claire tell you? That Joanne overheard something, became offended, and abandoned the planning. Then you refused to attend the ceremony, which caused Evan to question the entire marriage. That version saves time. Is it inaccurate? It leaves out every cause and includes every consequence. Diane exhaled. Whatever Claire said, she's under tremendous pressure. So I've heard. You need to fix this before people start canceling travel. The wedding is postponed. They should cancel travel. I mean, fix the family. With what? Talk to Joanne. I have. Tell her Claire didn't mean it. She did mean it, not literally. She listed supporting examples. Diane paused. What did she say? I told her. Silence followed, gratifying for approximately 3 seconds. Then Diane said, well, that wasn't kind. No, but Joanne knows Claire has always been sensitive about Sharon. Yes, she's usually so understanding. The mustard bottle made a small plastic pop in my hand. That's the problem. What is? Everyone expects Joanne to understand whatever makes life easiest for them. I don't. You asked her to make 2 pies last Thanksgiving, after telling her Sharon preferred to host. That was different. How? Joanne's pies are better. I closed my eyes. Diane continued, look, Sunday dinner is tomorrow. Get everybody in one room. Claire, Evan, Joanne, Sharon, if she can behave. And what would we serve at this reconciliation summit? I assume Joanne already planned something. The answer was so perfect, I almost admired it. There will be no Sunday dinner, I said. You host every week. Joanne hosts every week. I occupy the same address. You grill. Sometimes. So cook something. Everyone involved needs space. What people need is normalcy. No. What you need is Joanne to make a roast so we can all pretend we're normal. That is not what I said. It's what you meant. Diane went quiet. I expected anger. Instead, when she spoke again, her voice was subdued. Is she coming back? I don't know. Oh, Daniel. The sympathy frightened me more than the criticism. I'll let you know about next Sunday, I said. After we hung up, I finished the sandwich and ate it standing at the counter. The bread was stale, and I had used far too much mustard. Joanne would have added sliced apple because she claimed every sandwich needed something crisp. At 4, Claire sent a group message to the immediate family. The wedding is postponed. Please give us room. We will contact everyone when we know more. Diane replied with 3 red hearts. Sharon wrote, understood. Rick reacted with a thumbs up, then removed it, probably after Sharon explained that it looked celebratory. Joanne did not respond. 10 minutes later, a second message came to me alone. This is what you wanted, isn't it? I stared at the words until the screen dimmed. I typed, no. Then I erased it. I wrote, I wanted you to respect my wife. I never wanted you to lose confidence in your own marriage. Claire's reply came immediately. You chose her, and Evan chose himself. I guess everybody learned from you. Before I could answer, another message appeared. Don't contact me for a while. I set the phone face down. The house was quiet in the way I once thought I wanted. No argument, no demands, no one asking me to explain myself. For the first time, the silence did not feel peaceful. It felt like everyone had finally learned how to leave. I did not answer Claire. That was either respect or cowardice. I had spent enough years confusing the two that I no longer trusted my first interpretation. I turned the phone over twice during the next hour. Each time, her message remained the same. Don't contact me for a while. So I didn't. Sunday morning, I woke at 7 and reached for Joanne before remembering. I lay on my back until the ceiling came into focus, then went downstairs and started setting the table for dinner. I put out 4 plates before I stopped. Sunday dinner had expanded and contracted over the years. Sometimes it was just Claire and Evan. Sometimes Diane came. Sharon and Rick had attended twice, both times after negotiations involving seating, arrival times, and an agreement that no one would discuss national politics before dessert. The plates made the room look expectant. I put them away. At 10, Diane left a casserole on the porch without ringing the bell. A note taped to the foil said, "You need vegetables." I looked through the glass and saw her car still at the curb. She was sitting behind the wheel, watching the house. I opened the door. "You could come in," I called. She lowered her window. "I'm giving you space. You're conducting surveillance. I wanted to make sure you got it before squirrels did. What kind of squirrels can lift a casserole?" desperate ones. She put the car in gear, then stopped. I'm sorry about what I said, she called. Which part? The roast. That narrows it down. And the rest. I walked to the edge of the porch. Diane leaned toward the open window. I do ask a lot of Joanne. Yes. She always says yes. Yes, that doesn't make it my fault. No, but it doesn't make it entirely hers. Diane considered that. Is this one of those situations where I'm supposed to understand a lesson without anyone telling me how guilty to feel? I don't know. I hate those. I know. She nodded toward the casserole. It has broccoli. Thank you. Don't tell Joanne I used canned soup. She'll know. Diane drove away. The casserole lasted 2 days and tasted mostly of salt. I ate it anyway. At the woodworking group Monday afternoon, I cut a walnut board 1/2 inch short and blamed the tape measure. Those numbers move on you, Walt said from the next bench. Walt was 72, missing the tip of one finger, and incapable of offering sympathy without disguising it as criticism. He examined my board. What was it supposed to be? A drawer front. Now it's a narrow drawer front. The cabinet already exists. Then the cabinet has to become more open-minded. I set the board down. Walt adjusted the clamp on the small table he was building. Joanne, all right? Why wouldn't she be? You cut a board short. I've made mistakes before. Not with Walnut. The men and women in that room knew more about one another than any of us admitted. Not because we shared our feelings, but because grief changed how hard someone sanded, worry produced inaccurate measurements, and marital trouble made people arrive early with pastries. She's staying with her sister, I said. Walt nodded as if I had confirmed a defect in the grain. For how long? I don't know. What'd you do? My daughter insulted our marriage and I didn't respond well. What did Joanne do? She left. No. Before. I looked at him. Walt ran one hand across his table leg, feeling for roughness. People don't pack over the last thing. They pack over all the things. Did your wife teach you that? My first wife. My second wife taught me not to repeat it. I waited for more. He turned on his sander. That was all the wisdom I was getting. I stayed until the group ended at 4, although I accomplished nothing except converting expensive walnut into potential coasters. Joanne's car was in our driveway when I got home. For a moment, I remained behind the wheel. We had agreed she would come while I was gone. She had either arrived late or stayed deliberately. Both possibilities made my heart beat harder. I found her in the dining room. The blank place where the wedding materials had been was still empty. My place card sat on the table beside the navy pen. Joanne stood near the window looking at it. You're here, I said. She turned. Excellent observation. I thought you were coming earlier. I did. Her canvas bag and black suitcase waited near the stairs, both closed. I could not tell whether she had filled them or emptied them. How was woodworking? She asked. I made several coasters. You were making a cabinet. Plans change. Joanne touched the edge of my place card. It remained slightly bent from Claire's fingers. Claire called me. When? About an hour ago. What did she say? She asked if I was satisfied. I set my keys down too hard. I'll talk to her. No. She doesn't get to call you and she's hurting. That doesn't give her permission. No, it doesn't. Joanne's agreement stopped me. Did she apologize? I asked. No. What did you say? I asked what she thought would satisfy me. And, she said, being chosen. I pulled out a chair but did not sit. Joanne continued. She thinks you refused the ceremony to prove that our marriage is more important than she is. I told her it wasn't a contest. She has spent most of her adult life believing it was. I didn't create that alone. No. There was no accusation in the word, only weight. She said the wedding is postponed because everyone suddenly needs her to prove she loves Evan, Joanne said. She thinks love is the one thing nobody can prove. What did you tell her? That she was right. I stared at Joanne. She is right, Joanne said. You can't prove love on demand. You can only behave in ways that make it believable over time. That sounds like something she needed to hear. She didn't enjoy it. I'm shocked. Joanne sat in her usual chair. I took the one across from her instead of the chair beside it. Did she ask you to finish the cards? I asked. No. Did she ask you to come to the ceremony? There is no ceremony right now. I know. She asked whether I thought our marriage was convenient. The word had lost none of its power. What did you say? I said sometimes. Joanne, do you want honesty or loyalty? Both? So does Claire. I looked at her hands resting on the table. No wedding ring was missing. I had checked before I meant to. Our marriage has conveniences, she said. We share expenses, we divide chores. You reach the shelves, I can't. I remember where you put things you insist you didn't move. That is an important service. It is. You'd own 12 pairs of reading glasses without me. I practically do. The difference is I don't think those conveniences explain why we're still here. I don't either. But Claire didn't invent the idea from nothing. I know. Do you? I leaned back. I told her we met because we were lonely, I said. That liking the same life got us through the door. But it didn't make the marriage. What did she say? She said I make leaving look dignified. Joanne's face softened. That sounds like Claire. It sounds like Sharon. It sounds like both of them. She also said you quietly become indispensable, and then everyone feels guilty when you stop. Joanne looked away. I expected her to be offended. Instead, she folded her hands more tightly. She's not wrong, she said. She said it cruelly. That doesn't make it false. What are you saying? Joanne took a breath. When I first joined this family, I knew Claire didn't want me. Sharon barely spoke to me. Diane treated me like a temporary guest who happened to have excellent pie crust. That is how Diane treats most people. I could have insisted on a place. I could have told you it hurt. Instead, I made myself useful. Because you're generous. Also because usefulness felt safer than asking to be loved. I had no answer. Joanne glanced around the dining room. If I hosted, everyone came. If I remembered the birthdays, people called. If I made the table runners, Claire needed me close enough that I could pretend she wanted me there. She did want you. For what? The question was quieter than Claire's insult and more painful. For you, I said. Sometimes. I think she did sometimes. But whenever I felt the difference, I worked harder. You shouldn't have had to. No. But I also should have stopped. I looked at the navy pen. Why didn't you tell me? I did. When? Every time I said Claire only called when she needed something. Every time I asked why you never corrected her when she called this your house. Every time I told you I didn't want to host both your sister and your ex-wife on the same day. I thought you were venting. I know, Walt's voice returned to me. People don't pack over the last thing. I'm sorry, I said. Joanne nodded, but she did not absolve me. Are the bags packed or unpacked? I asked. Unpacked. I looked toward the stairs. You're staying? I'm coming home. Relief moved through me so quickly I had to grip the edge of the table. Joanne held up one hand. I'm coming home because this is my home, and because I want our marriage. Not because Claire's wedding is postponed, not because Diane needs vegetables, not because you ruined Walnut. Walt told you? Walt's wife texted Paula. There are no confidential institutions left. Apparently not. I stood, then stopped. Can I hug you? Joanne looked at me for a long moment. Yes. I went around the table and put my arms around her. She pressed her face against my chest. Neither of us spoke. Her hands rested flat against my back, familiar and cautious. I wanted to promise that everything would change. Instead, I held her until she stepped away. Are you hungry? I asked, a little. I can make eggs. No, that was immediate. I love you, Daniel. I'm not reckless. We ordered pizza and ate it from paper plates at the kitchen counter. Joanne did not add a salad. I did not ask whether this meant we were all right. When we went upstairs, she put her suitcase back on the closet shelf. The sound was different from taking it down. In bed, we lay facing opposite directions with an unfamiliar strip of mattress between us. After several minutes, Joanne reached backward until her hand found mine. I held it in the dark. The house was quiet again, but this time the silence contained two people choosing not to leave. In the morning, Joanne made coffee. I heard the grinder from upstairs and felt guilty before I was fully awake. By the time I reached the kitchen, she had filled both mugs and was standing at the counter reading something on her phone. You don't have to do that, I said. Make coffee? For me? I made a pot. Your share involved moving my wrist 3 inches. I could have done it, I know. We looked at each other over the mugs. Every ordinary act had become suspicious. Coffee could be care, habit, surrender, or evidence that nothing had changed. I imagined our marriage collapsing under the weight of interpreting breakfast. I'll make it tomorrow, I said. You make it too strong. I'll make yours separately. That seems wasteful. We can buy a second coffee maker. That is how people end up on television, surrounded by appliances. I sat at the counter. Joanne took the chair opposite me. The strip of distance from the bed seemed to have followed us downstairs. I don't want you to stop doing kind things because you're afraid I'll mistake them for submission, I said. I don't want you thanking me every time I touch a household object. Good. We're making progress, are we? No idea. She smiled slightly. Her phone lit up beside her mug. Claire's name appeared on the screen. Joanne looked at it, but did not pick it up. Do you want me to leave? I asked. No. Do you want me to stay? I want you to drink your coffee and not turn this into a tactical decision. I lifted my mug. The phone stopped ringing. A moment later, a voicemail notification appeared. Joanne put the phone face down. Are you going to listen? I asked. Later. Do you want to know why she's calling? Yes, but you're not answering. Correct. I nodded slowly. I'm learning. What are you learning? That wanting an answer does not create an emergency. That could be embroidered on a pillow. Diane probably owns one. Joanne drank her coffee, then turned the phone over and played the voicemail without putting it on speaker. Her expression did not change much. At the end, she set the phone down. What did she say? I asked. She wants the name of the woman who made the cake. It's in the binder. She says the number in the binder goes to the bakery and the woman has a personal number. Do you have it? Yes. Joanne typed something and sent it. That's all? I asked. That's what she requested. You're not going to call? No. Are you angry? Yes. She said it without drama. I waited. Joanne raised one eyebrow. You don't have to fix that either. I was going to offer support. What kind? I hadn't gotten that far. That's what I thought. She stood and carried her mug to the sink. I watched her rinse it, then stopped myself from thanking her for washing a dish in her own home. You were right about something, I said. Joanne turned off the faucet. Only one thing? I let Claire and the rest of the family treat your helpfulness like a natural resource. That's a very Daniel sentence. What does that mean? It sounds as if you're presenting findings to a zoning board. I leaned on the counter. I'm trying to say I'm sorry, then say it like a husband. I looked at her. I'm sorry I enjoyed the ease you created without noticing how much it cost you. Joanne dried her hands. I'm sorry I called our marriage easy when you were doing most of the work that made it feel that way. And I'm sorry I acted as if loving you privately excused me from choosing you where other people could see. Her eyes lowered. There was no clever response waiting this time. I don't need speeches at dinner, she said. I know. I don't need you correcting every person who calls me helpful. I know. I need you not to make me ask alone. I can do that. You can practice. It was not forgiveness, but it was a place to begin. Diane called that afternoon. I'm hosting Sunday, she announced. Is that a threat? It's dinner. Same question. I invited everyone. Who is everyone? You, Joanne, Claire, Evan, Sharon, Rick. That is not dinner. That is an experiment. No wedding discussion. No marriage discussion. No historical grievances. What will we discuss? The weather? For 3 hours? I also have a story about a pharmacist. Joanne and I will talk about it. That means no. It means we'll talk. It always meant no, when you were married to Sharon. I'm not married to Sharon. That is one of the prohibited topics. Joanne was in the room, trimming dead leaves from a plant by the window. I held the phone away from my ear. Diane wants to host Sunday. Is she cooking? Joanne asked. I relayed the question. I can cook, Diane said. She says yes. I heard her. Joanne's mouth twitched. Tell her we'll come, but I'm not bringing anything. I repeated it. Diane paused. Not even dessert? Diane. I'm clarifying. We'll be there at 5. After I hung up, I looked at Joanne. Are you sure? No. But avoiding Claire indefinitely will turn this into another system. What system? She calls when she needs something, I answer only what she asks, and we both pretend efficiency is a relationship. Do you want to talk to her before dinner? She asked for the baker's number. That wasn't my question. I know. Sunday arrived with cold rain and enough wind to invert 2 umbrellas between our driveway and Diane's front door. Joanne carried nothing but her purse. I carried nothing at all. It was the first time we had entered Diane's house empty-handed since she moved there 15 years earlier. She opened the door and looked at our hands. I said we weren't bringing anything, Joanne told her. I know. I just didn't believe you. Diane hugged Joanne longer than usual. Joanne endured it, then hugged her back. The dining room smelled of beef, onions, and something scorched beneath both. Rick stood near the fireplace with a drink, studying a framed photograph as if it contained instructions for survival. Sharon was helping Diane in the kitchen, which meant opening drawers and criticizing their organization. Claire had not arrived, neither had Evan. At 5:15, the doorbell rang. Claire entered alone, damp at the shoulders, carrying a bottle of wine. Her gaze moved from me to Joanne and stopped. "You're home," she said. "Yes," Joanne replied. "When?" "Monday." Claire looked at me. "You didn't tell me. You asked me not to contact you." Her mouth tightened. "I meant about the wedding. I didn't know there were categories." Sharon appeared from the kitchen. "Coats go in the bedroom. Grievances stay in the car. Mom, I've had 2 marriages. Let me use what I learned." Rick raised his glass slightly. "I support this policy." Claire handed the wine to Diane, who examined the label. "This is nice," Diane said. "It was in my cabinet. Still nice." At 5:28, Evan arrived carrying a grocery store pie. "I panicked," he said when Diane stared at it. "You were right to," she replied. Claire and Evan greeted each other with a small kiss on the cheek that looked like something performed at an embassy. He took her coat. She thanked him. No one mentioned the wedding for 14 minutes. We discussed the rain, a fallen tree near Sharon's house, and Diane's pharmacist, who had apparently called her young lady with insufficient irony. Rick told a story about accidentally joining a water aerobics class at his gym. Joanne laughed hard enough to wipe her eyes. Then Diane brought in the roast. It was gray in the center and dark at both ends, a combination I had not believed possible. "We can order food," she said. "No," Joanne told her. "We're eating it." There was affection in the command. Diane heard it and relaxed. At the table, Claire sat between Sharon and Evan. Joanne sat beside me. Diane had made place cards from folded index cards, each name written in thick black marker. When Joanne saw hers, she looked at Diane. "I didn't know where anyone wanted to sit," Diane said defensively. "It's fine. I can move you." I said it's fine. Claire looked down at Joanne's card, then at mine. Something passed across her face. We ate the roast. It required concentration. Halfway through dinner, Evan asked Joanne, "Did Claire get the baker's number?" Every fork at the table slowed. "Yes," Joanne said. Claire put down her water glass. "I thanked you. You did." "You didn't answer. There wasn't a question." "I said I appreciated it. I read that." Sharon cut her meat with unnecessary force. "Perhaps this is not the time." "No," Claire said. "Apparently direct communication is what everybody wants." "Direct is not the same as public," I said. She looked at me. "I'm not talking to you." I noticed. Joanne touched my wrist once, not to silence me, to remind me she was there. Claire turned back to her. "I don't know what you expect from me." "Nothing tonight." "That's worse?" "Why?" "Because then I'm just sitting here knowing you think I'm awful." "I don't think you're awful. You left your own house because of me. I left because of problems in my marriage, that I exposed, that you triggered." The distinction quieted the table. Joanne continued. "You said something cruel. Your father failed to respond. I reacted to 13 years, not one phone call." Claire's chin lifted. "So, this is his fault?" "No." "Why do you need one person to be guilty?" "Because otherwise everyone gets to say they made mistakes, and I'm still the one whose wedding disappeared." Evan set down his fork. "Our wedding didn't disappear," he said. "We postponed it." "Same practical result," Claire replied. I recognized the phrase from Sharon. She did too. Evan looked at Claire carefully. "Do you want to talk about this here?" "No." "Then stop talking about it here. That's convenient." The word landed in the middle of the table. Claire went pale. Joanne's hand left my wrist. Evan closed his eyes. "I'm sorry. That was cheap." "At least you apologized immediately," Claire said. He pushed back his chair. "Sit down," Sharon told him. Everyone looked at her. "This family has spent 18 years walking away from unfinished meals," she said. "Tonight we eat Diane's terrible roast and remain seated." Diane looked offended. "You said it was moist. I lied because you were holding the knife." Rick coughed into his napkin to hide a laugh. Even Claire smiled, unwillingly. Evan sat. For several minutes, the only sounds were silverware and rain against the windows. Then Claire looked at Joanne. "I don't know how to be around you now," she said. Joanne took a drink of water. "Why?" "Because I don't know what you're willing to do. I'm willing to have dinner. I mean for me." "I know." Claire waited. Joanne's voice remained gentle. "Maybe we should find out who we are to each other when you don't need me to do anything." Claire's eyes filled, but she did not look away. "What if there's nothing?" she asked. "Then at least it will be honest." Evan's hand moved across the table, stopping beside Claire's without touching it. Claire looked down at the space between their fingers. After a moment, she closed it. Diane served the pie herself. She carried it in from the kitchen, set it on the sideboard, then looked automatically toward Joanne. "I can cut it," Diane said. "I believe in you," Joanne replied. "You don't sound convincing. I watched you cook the roast." Diane pointed the pie server at her. "You're still a guest in this house. That's what I've always wanted." The joke was gentle, but Diane heard what lived beneath it. She lowered the server. "I'm sorry," she said. Joanne looked startled. "For the roast? For always asking you to bring something? For assuming you liked being asked?" "I did like being asked. Then I'm confused. I also wanted to be invited when I brought nothing." Diane nodded slowly. "You can come empty-handed from now on. Not every time." "Good." "Your lemon pie is better than this." Diane. "I'm growing, not lying." We ate dessert in the living room because Diane said the dining table had absorbed enough. Claire sat beside Evan on the couch. They did not touch often, but when they did, the gestures looked less ceremonial than they had at dinner. His hand rested briefly on her shoulder when she stood. She took his empty plate without asking. Small things. Most love sounded small when listed. As we were leaving, Sharon caught Joanne in the kitchen. I had gone back for my glasses, which were in my shirt pocket, so I heard their conversation before either woman saw me. "I owe you an apology," Sharon said. "That seems to be the evening's theme. I let Claire treat you like an intruder because it kept her loyalty pointed toward me." Joanne leaned against the counter. "You never asked her to exclude me. I didn't have to. I made it clear I was wounded whenever she included you. That must have been exhausting." "It was. I've aged beautifully despite it." Joanne smiled. Sharon's voice became quieter. "You weren't the reason our marriage ended. I know. But I enjoyed the fact that people wondered. I know that too. You could let me finish without being perceptive." "I can try. I'm sorry." Joanne considered her. "I don't need us to become friends," she said. "Thank God. I do need you to stop acting as if respecting me betrays the woman you were 18 years ago." Sharon nodded. "That seems fair. And I'm sorry I let being the calm wife turn you into the difficult one." Sharon's eyebrows rose. "Daniel did that," she said. "He had help." For a moment they stood facing each other. Two women who had spent years representing opposite verdicts on my character. Then Sharon held out her hand. Joanne looked at it. "What is this?" "I don't know. A treaty? Do we need witnesses?" "Daniel is hiding by the refrigerator." I stepped into view. I was looking for my glasses. "They're in your pocket," both women said. On the drive home, Joanne watched rain bead across her window. "That was a strange evening," I said. "Diane's roast had a crust." I meant emotionally. So did I. "Are you glad we went?" "I'm glad we came home." I glanced at her. "That sounds almost hopeful." "It's geography." At a red light, she reached across the console and rested her hand on mine. We did not host dinner the following Sunday. Diane called twice to make sure we understood she was not expecting us. Sharon invited Claire and Evan separately, then became irritated when both accepted, because she had hoped to divide her attention. Rick took them all to a restaurant where nobody could retreat to a kitchen. Joanne and I spent the afternoon at the community garden where we had met. The current coordinator had placed the tomatoes in the same bad location Joanne had argued about years earlier. "I should say something," she told me. "Will it improve your life?" "No." "Then let the tomatoes suffer. That's very easy for you." "You don't eat tomatoes." I support them philosophically. We cleared an overgrown bed together. This time, I waited for Joanne to identify the marigolds before pulling anything. At home, Claire sent me a message. "Do you think Evan and I are making a mistake?" I showed Joanne. "What are you going to say?" she asked. "I don't know. That's new." I was considering telling her to talk to Evan. Good. I was also considering saying, "I think they love each other." Also good. Those answers seem contradictory. They aren't. I wrote, "I think you love each other. I also think you should decide what that asks of you before choosing another date. Talk to him, not me. Claire responded 10 minutes later. He said the same thing. Then, you have something in common, I wrote. She sent no reply, but she did not tell me to leave her alone. The changes that followed were ordinary enough that an outsider would have missed them. When Claire called asking whether Joanne remembered the deadline for canceling the rented chairs, I said, "Ask Joanne, I'm asking you." "I don't know. You can ask her, so can you." Claire hung up, then called Joanne directly. Joanne gave her the deadline and nothing else. Claire called the rental company herself. When Diane invited us to lunch and asked Joanne to bring potato salad, she caught herself before finishing the sentence. "Bring yourselves," she said, "unless you want potato salad." Joanne did, so she made it. The distinction mattered to her, even though the bowl looked exactly the same. I began making coffee in the mornings. It was too strong for the first week. Joanne drank it anyway, then finally told me it tasted like roofing tar. "You could have said that sooner," I told her. "I was trying to encourage you. We're done encouraging through dishonesty. Fine. Your eggs are also terrible." That felt opportunistic. At night, the strip of mattress between us narrowed. Some evenings we talked until midnight. Other evenings we read without trying to turn silence into a diagnosis. 3 weeks after Joanne came home, I opened the travel website we had visited so many times it remembered our preferences. "What are you doing?" she asked from the couch. Looking at the main trip, she lowered her book. We had planned the trip 3 times. The first time, Claire's work situation had collapsed 2 days before our departure, and she asked Joanne to stay with her. The second, Diane needed help after ankle surgery. The third, Claire and Evan moved into the townhouse and discovered that owning walls did not mean understanding them. Each postponement had seemed reasonable. Together, they had become another way our marriage waited. "There's an inn in Camden," I said. 5 nights in October. The weather could be awful." "Yes. The restaurants close early. So do we." "What if Claire reschedules the wedding?" I looked at her. Joanne held my gaze. "We send our regrets," I said. She did not smile immediately. When she did, her eyes filled. "Book it," she said. I did. Claire called 2 days later. "Mom said you and Joanne are going to Maine in October." "Which week?" I told her. She became quiet. "Why?" I asked. Evan and I were discussing dates. For the wedding? Maybe. A different wedding. What does that mean? Smaller, no production, no hand-lettered cards. I heard embarrassment in the last sentence. "Joanne's cards were beautiful," I said. "I know. That doesn't mean you need them. I know that too." I waited for Claire to ask us to change our trip. She didn't. "We'll avoid that week," she said. "You don't have to plan around us." "Yes, I do, if I want you there." The words were simple. They stayed with me all day. Claire and Evan did not choose a date immediately. They spent evenings talking about vows without drafting them, about what each of them feared, and about the difference between being reliable and being emotionally available. I knew only what Claire told me, which was less than I wanted and more than I deserved. Evan called once to apologize for involving me. "I was looking for a verdict," he said. "So was everyone. I moved back in." "I thought you already had. I came back for one night. Moving back in was a separate decision." "How does Claire feel? Ask her." I smiled. "You're learning." She said the same thing. Another week passed before Claire asked to come over. "Do you need something?" I said. The question left my mouth before I heard how it sounded. She went quiet. "No," she said. "That's the point." She arrived Saturday afternoon carrying only her purse. No fabrics, no binder, no cake samples, no problem for Joanne to solve. When I opened the door, she looked past me. "Is Joanne here?" "In the garden. I came to talk to her. I can get her." Claire touched my arm before I turned. "I think you should stay." "Why?" "Because some of this belongs to you." Joanne came in through the back door wearing gardening gloves and an old red shirt. It was not the same one she had worn when we met, but for a second I could see her kneeling in the dirt, unimpressed by my confidence. She removed the gloves when she saw Claire. "Is everything all right?" Claire gave a small, pained laugh. Everyone keeps asking that, when they mean, "What happened now?" Joanne put the gloves on the counter. "What happened now?" "Nothing." Claire looked at the dining room. "Can we sit?" We took the same places as before. Claire across from me, Joanne at the head of the table. My place card still lay beside the navy pen. Neither Joanne nor I had moved it. The bent cream paper had become part of the room. Claire noticed it. I should have made you one, she said to Joanne. Joanne's face did not change. I don't mean just for the wedding, Claire continued. I mean, I should have made a place for you before I needed you to make things for me. Her voice shook, but she kept going. I told myself I wasn't close to you because being close would hurt Mom. But that wasn't all of it. If I admitted Dad loved you, then I had to admit he could build a good marriage after ours ended. Your parents' marriage ended, Joanne said gently. Not yours. It felt like mine. I know. I made you the woman who benefited from it. Even though you came later. Even though you never asked me to choose. Claire looked down at her hands. And I turned you into a service because services don't threaten anybody. They help, and you say thank you, and then they leave. Joanne's eyes lowered. I like that you needed me, she said. I let that stand in for other things. That doesn't excuse me. No, Claire swallowed. I'm sorry I called your marriage convenient. I'm sorry I said you must know the arrangement. And I'm sorry I asked you to work for a ceremony where I had already decided you didn't belong. No one moved? Claire looked at Joanne directly. I don't expect you to forgive me because I finally found the right words. Good, Joanne said. Claire flinched, then nodded. Joanne reached across the table and placed her hand over Claire's. I believe you're sorry, she said. That's where we can start. Claire turned her hand beneath Joanne's until their palms met. I don't know what comes next, she whispered. Joanne squeezed her fingers once. Coffee, she said. Next Saturday. You and me. Don't bring anything that needs fixing. Claire laughed through the tears. I can do that. Then she looked at me. Her expression changed. The apology she had brought was not finished. Dad, she said, I need to tell you what I'm still angry about. I'm listening, I said. Claire glanced at Joanne, who kept her hand resting over Claire's. I'm angry that you waited until my wedding to become honest. That's fair. I'm angry that one of the first clear choices you ever made in front of me was not to show up for me. I started to answer, then stopped. You said you wouldn't come without Joanne, Claire continued. I understand why now. I even think you were right, but I need you to understand what I heard, that I was leaving again. Yes. Joanne withdrew her hand gently. Not in rejection. She was giving the conversation back to us. I don't regret refusing to attend without my wife, I said. I regret making it the first time you saw me stand firmly for this marriage. Claire's eyes filled again. If you had done it before, she said, maybe I wouldn't have thought she was temporary. I know. And if you had told me the truth when you left Mom, maybe I wouldn't have spent 18 years waiting to find out what was wrong with us. Nothing was wrong with you. You keep saying that now. I should have said it then. She looked down at the table. I was an adult. Everyone kept reminding me of that. 19 was old enough to understand divorce, old enough to stay at school, old enough not to need things explained. It wasn't. You gave me 3 days. Yes. You asked if I needed money for books. I didn't know what else to offer. You could have offered yourself. The answer was so obvious that I felt ashamed of every complicated explanation I had ever placed in front of it. I should have, I said. I made your anger into proof you didn't want me near you. Then I waited for you to become less angry before I tried again. I was waiting for you. I know that now. No, I mean, I actually waited. Every Sunday I thought you'd call and ask me to lunch. Not to talk about my car or tuition, just lunch. I thought of those early Sundays in the apartment with the square white plates. I had filled them with errands, laundry, and long walks through stores where no one knew me. I had told myself Claire needed loyalty to her mother more than she needed time with me. I was afraid you'd say no, I admitted. You were my father. I know. You were supposed to ask anyway. Yes. Claire wiped her face. I'm not saying that, so you'll apologize one more time. Why are you saying it? Because I don't want to keep using Joanne to punish you for something you did before she came. Joanne looked down. And I don't want every nice thing between us to feel like I'm betraying Mom, Claire said. Mom doesn't even want that. Apparently she's been waiting years for me to stop defending a marriage she hated. That sounds like Sharon, Claire laughed wetly. She said you'd say that. I'm predictable, in very specific ways. She looked at me directly. I need you to choose Joanne without making me feel unchosen. The old instinct rose immediately. Reassure. Promise. Make the contradiction disappear. This time, I let it remain complicated. I can choose my wife and still show up for my daughter, I said. I should have understood that before either of you had to demand it. What if we ask for different things? Then I'll tell both of you the truth. I won't agree with whoever is most upset and ask the other one to understand. Joanne gave me a measured look. That will require practice, I'm aware. Claire took a breath. And I'm still angry that you won't walk me in. If you decide to have a ceremony and want me there, I'll walk with you. With Joanne invited. Yes. Not because I'm being forced, no. How will you know the difference? I considered that. I may not, I said, but Joanne will. Both women stared at me. What? I asked. Joanne's mouth twitched. That was either trust or delegation. Trust. Good answer. Claire looked at Joanne. If we have another ceremony, I want you there. Joanne did not rush to thank her. Why? She asked. Because you've been in my life for 13 years. Because you matter to Dad. Because you've mattered to me in ways I made small. Claire glanced at the place card. And because I don't want to build a marriage by pretending yours isn't real. Joanne nodded once. Then I'd like to be there. Claire let out a breath. No one declared the family repaired. There was no embrace across the table. Joanne made coffee, Claire accepted a cup, and I was told mine would be stronger if I wanted it, because neither woman intended to drink what I considered coffee. We spent the next hour discussing almost nothing important. Claire told us Evan had begun making lists of questions they needed to answer, which annoyed her because lists were supposed to be her territory. Joanne described Paul as decorative ladders. I learned that one of them held blankets and was therefore, according to Paula, functional. When Claire stood to leave, she picked up my bent place card. Can I take this? She asked. You didn't want it. I didn't then. I looked at Joanne. She did not object. Claire slipped the card carefully into her purse. At the door, she hugged Joanne first. The hug was brief and awkward. Joanne's hand landed too high on Claire's shoulder. Claire nearly caught her purse strap between them. It was imperfect enough to be real. Then Claire hugged me. I'm still mad, she said against my shirt. I know. I love you. I love you too. She pulled away. You could sound more surprised. I'm trying not to make it weird. You always make it weird by trying not to. After she left, Joanne and I stood in the front hall. How did I do? I asked. No grades. Right. You listened. I can live with that. Joanne reached up and straightened my collar. Your shirt still has weather. I'm never showing Sharon this shirt again. You should burn it. Now, who's dramatic? Claire and Joanne had coffee the following Saturday. I was not invited. I did not ask for a report when Joanne returned, though the effort nearly injured me. They talked for 2 hours. She volunteered while hanging up her jacket. About what? You lasted 6 seconds? I thought there was no test. There wasn't. That makes it more disappointing. She kissed my cheek as she passed. The coffees continued, not every week and not always peacefully. Once Claire came home with Joanne because they had argued in the cafe parking lot about whether Joanne had been condescending. They finished the disagreement at our kitchen counter while I chopped onions and contributed nothing except occasional tears I could blame on food. Claire stopped calling only when she needed help. Sometimes she sent Joanne a photograph of an ugly lamp and asked for an opinion. Sometimes Joanne called Claire to complain about a book ending. The exchanges were small and did not erase 13 years, which was exactly why I trusted them. Evan moved fully back into the townhouse. He and Claire did not resume wedding planning immediately. They learned how to have the same argument without treating departure as punctuation. Claire admitted she wanted certainty because she had confused uncertainty with abandonment. Evan admitted he had packed his bag partly because he wanted the sight of it to frighten an answer out of her. Neither confession was flattering. Both were useful. Joanne and I left for Maine on a cold Monday in October. The trip began with rain, as predicted, and a misunderstanding over luggage. I thought Joanne had packed the small black bag. She thought I had. We reached Connecticut before realizing it was still on the bedroom floor. We can turn around, I said. We are not driving 4 hours for my second pair of shoes. You packed one pair for 5 days? I was distracted by a man announcing every 10 minutes that we needed to leave on schedule. We did leave on schedule, without half my clothes. We bought a sweater and toothbrush at a store off the highway. Joanne chose a yellow sweater she would never have bought at home, then wore it for 3 straight days. The rain followed us to Camden. We walked along the harbor under one umbrella, ate dinner at 5:30 because the restaurants did close early, and spent an entire afternoon reading beside a window that faced gray water. No one called with a crisis. Claire sent one message asking whether the inn was nice. Diane requested a photograph of the coast. Sharon texted Joanne privately to ask whether I had packed shirts with weather. On our fourth morning, the rain stopped. Joanne and I took coffee onto a narrow porch behind the inn. The harbor was silver beneath the clearing sky. Everything smelled of wet wood and salt. "I've been thinking about my proposal," I said. "That is a dangerous opening on a trip we can't refund. I'm not proposing again." "Good. I already have towels with our initials." "You bought those." I was committed. I turned my cup between my hands. When I said we worked well together, I thought it was the highest compliment I could give. I know. I had spent years believing love was proven by how little trouble you caused another person. Joanne looked toward the boats. "I thought a good marriage would be calm because two compatible people wouldn't need much from each other," I continued. "Then I called what we had easy, even when you were doing the work that made it feel safe." She said nothing. "I love our routines," I said. "I love that you know where my glasses are. I love that we like the same bad diner and leave parties at the same time. But I don't love you because you make my life convenient." Joanne's eyes met mine. "I love you because you notice when I'm disappearing and refuse to let me call it peace. Because you're kind without being harmless. Because you make room for people. And because you finally stopped making room for me when I used too much." Her mouth trembled. "I should have chosen you out loud years ago," I said. "Not to prove anything to Claire or Sharon. Because you deserve to hear that I would choose you even if you were terrible at coffee, hated quiet weekends, and never made another pie. That's a very extreme hypothetical. I'm committed to it." She wiped beneath one eye. 13 years, she said. "You finally learned love can be inconvenient. I'm a slow student." It was an inconvenient lesson. "Worth learning?" Joanne set down her cup and kissed me. "Worth learning," she said. Claire and Evan chose a new date while we were driving home. The ceremony took place 3 months later in a small glass room at a botanical garden. There were 18 guests, no table runners, no eucalyptus experiments, and no ceremony seating category designed around who had shaped whom. Sharon attended with Rick. I attended with Joanne. Before the ceremony, Claire found me near a row of potted citrus trees. She wore a simple ivory dress and held no flowers because she had decided she wanted both hands free. "You came," she said. "You invited my wife. I invited both of you?" "Yes." She looked toward Joanne, who was helping Diane remove a price sticker from the sole of her shoe. Sharon stood nearby, offering advice nobody had requested. Rick watched all 3 women with the expression of a man grateful for large windows. "Are you ready?" I asked. "No." "Good. Why is that good?" "It would be strange if you were calm." Claire slipped her hand through my arm. "I'm not asking you to give me away," she said. "I wasn't planning to. I want you to walk with me. I can do that." We waited outside the glass doors. On the other side, Evan stood facing us. He looked nervous, badly in need of a haircut, and completely certain about where to look. Claire tightened her hand on my arm. "I love him," she whispered. "I know. That isn't the only reason. I know that too." We walked in together. Their vows were short. Claire did not promise that feelings would never change. She promised to speak before silence became a decision. Evan promised not to use leaving as a way to make her chase him. They both promised to keep choosing a life that allowed the other person to remain a person, not a role. At dinner afterward, 18 folded place cards stood around one long table. Mine was the old cream card Joanne had lettered before everything broke open, the slight bend still visible across my name. Beside it stood a new card. The lettering was uneven. The navy ink pooled in the loop of the J, and Bell leaned uphill as if resisting gravity. Joanne touched it with one finger. Claire watched from across the table. "I need practice," she said. Joanne smiled. "You have time." I pulled out Joanne's chair. She sat beside me, not because anyone needed managing, not because she had prepared the meal, remembered a deadline, or made herself useful enough to belong. Claire had written her name. She had made her a place.